I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dwayne?
Fathers, we come together today as the county commission. We give thanks for being able to live in a country where we actually have a vote on our future. Today we canvass those votes and our appreciation and thanks again for the opportunity to live in this great nation. Father, bless everybody in this room. Grant us good health, good travels, safety, and most of all, Lord, we ask for moisture for the crops. It's pretty dry again. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Again. More.
This never satisfied.
Well, like I told Dwayne, there's people like him that are full-time and people like me that are just hobby, and us hobby people that aren't quite as concerned about it as the full-time people, but I am very sensitive to that since that's in my roots. One other thing that I want to mention during the chair, or a couple other things in the chair comments. This is going to be a little bit of a different meeting because we're going to be the board of canvassers for the county for the vote tally. We're also going to have two budget hearings today that are not tied to the revenue neutral question and so forth. So we'll be doing some recessing and reconvening on some of the items on our agenda today. The other thing, board members, I would ask that we add an executive session just before the board governance discussion it's on the second page of my agenda, for the purpose of consulting with our attorney, and it will include the administrator and human resource director, and probably when we get to that point, probably 15, 20 minutes. It won't be a lengthy executive session, but we've been asked to add that to the agenda. Outside of that change to the agenda, board members, or anything that you want to add or subtract from the agenda? If not, we'll move right into the agenda. And the consent agenda, you see some minutes, payables, and the chip seal contract, which we had authorized earlier, and this was for the payment of that. Any comments about the consent agenda before entertain a motion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those items.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
And
Second.
seconded by Bob, moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the items on consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Public comment. Anything from the public that is not on our agenda today, we would entertain those comments at this point. Yes, Matt, come forward.
Thank you, Matt Allen, City Manager, City of Garden City. Thanks for letting me jump up here real quick. Notice of intents for Safe Streets for All grant applications that will be due later on in the fall are due today. So what's Safe Streets for All? A new engineering study that appears to be prerequisite requirement for future BIL dollars through federal government, through the big kind of once-in-a-generation wave of funding that could be hitting cities and counties. So my role with the Kansas Infrastructure Hub, I've had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about how these things will be scored and prioritized, not just on a federal level, but at a state level as well. Heavy emphasis being placed on a couple of things. The nature of the population that a project might serve, so to the extent that you can represent that it's a disadvantaged population, it increases the likelihood you'd be funded. Also the extent to which it's a partnership beyond one local government unit. Cities and counties, obvious partnerships, but also corridors or regions, we think will probably help you score more points or get a larger percentage of match. Those notices of intent, again, are due today. I've got a copy of it. It's pretty rudimentary. Sorry, there's only 5 copies. I've sent a digital one to Robert.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
The scope of the project can be perfected between now and the application. Really now, it's just a notice of intent. So it's our intent, we'll be applying for this. And it would also be our intent to reach out, because since US 83 is a priority corridor for the city of Garden City and its goals, it, in addition to housing, is the top prioritized goal of the current city commission. We have a conversation with Scott City and Scott County to see if they have an intent to apply, and if they don't, if they would wish to sign on under our notice of intent as well. Really, I think I've told you everything I know at this point, but I'll try to answer questions if you have additional ones.
Matt, thank you for being here, and thank you for being a point person with regard to BIL. And I did attend one session up in Hayes some time ago, but I appreciate your consistency with this funding source. So you're here today to inform us about the application. Are you asking the county commission for any action, or is there anything official that has to be done from a county perspective?
I'll leave it to Robert to decide it, or to the group, whether or not you want to back it with a vote. We'll actually do the notice of intent without one. I'll update the commission that the application's definitely going to need a vote when we get to that stage. But we've got this paperwork back yesterday on as far as what the estimate of what the scope of the project would be. And so I wanted to try to catch Robert before this meeting so we knew how to submit this notice of intent, whether we were going to do it singularly or singularly plus a neighboring county, or do it with Finney County.
So, yeah, go ahead, Robert. Yeah.
Well, at this point in time, you do not require any formal vote, since it is just an intent for an application. And so at this point in time, as we learn more and more about the project and we flesh it out a little bit more, when you go through the application process, then there'll be a need for a formal vote to apply to participate.
Yeah, and where my question is coming from, unless there was some objection to the county participating, then I didn't see any reason for a vote either, but I wanted to, at this point, but I just wanted to clarify that, so thank you.
I agree.
Larry, any comments or questions? Bob?
I just think it'd be ultimately important that we stand up as a community, that it's not only the city, but the county aggressively goes forward, whether we vote on it, whether we commit anything today or not. I think it's absolutely imperative that we stand up together.
Dwayne? Dave?
I believe I would echo what Bob just said. The partnership's very important.
I guess the takeaway I have, you have a willing partner, and then we go to.
Good, we'll stay in touch. All right, good luck with your canvassing.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
appreciate that. Hand this to Gabby, please. Okay, any other public comment? If not, we move into business items, and the first thing is to move into the status of a board of county canvassers with regard to provisional ballots and certification of results. This particular part of the agenda, we will open with the canvassing process. Dory will be presenting to us, and then once we've completed this initial process, we will recess while they meet and go through the provisional ballots, and then we'll come back when Dory's completed that segment. So with that, Dory, come on to the podium and help us canvass.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So I've provided you with a packet of information this morning. The first thing is an excerpt from our election standards, which includes a provisional ballot chart That's the ballot that guides us in making a recommendation to you as to whether or not to count particular ballots within a group. The second thing I provided you was all of the statutes that apply to any of the ballots that we have today. So you can refer to those if you need to. We also have Linda. I've briefed her on Canvas, and she should be able to help if she's needed. So as we've done in the past, I've grouped these ballots into various groups of whatever their situation was. So we're going to go through those in groups, and you will make your either accept or reject motions within each group. All right, the first group of ballots is C001 through C012. These ballots were due to a name change. They were provisional ballots because the person changed their name, most likely due to marriage. They provided that new name, they filled out a new voter registration, and therefore we would recommend that that count. There's nothing in law that precludes that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Dave.
first, before I offer a motion, I want to thank Dory and all of the folks that put in the hard work on the election. You make this run smoothly, and we, as a commission, appreciate it. And with that, I'll offer a motion to accept ballots C01 through, C001 through C012.
There is a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dwayne. Any discussion or comments? If not, all in favor of accepting C001 through C012, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, Dory?
The next set of ballots is C013 through C063. Each of these ballots were cast by a voter who was determined not to be registered across the state of Kansas. So they weren't registered in another county. They may have been previously registered, but they were not currently registered. Kansas law does require registration before voting. And so for these, I would recommend that you reject counting these ballots.
Mr. Chairman, I move we reject C013 through C063.
There is a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I was just simply, and there is a second to the motion. I was just simply looking, it's interesting, the different precincts and so forth that those were in. It's just kind of interesting to have it spread out, pretty much all over the place.
We've had a lot of new voters move into the county, it seems.
Now, will they automatically be registered into the general?
Yes, by filling out that registration application along with their provisional ballot, that gets them registered and gets their information updated. So they're good for the general.
This is probably the most we've rejected for this past memory, is it not?
We did have a lot of non-registered voters in 2020 as well. We had a lot of new voters this time, yet very young, just turned 18, 19, that had never voted before and came out most likely due to the constitutional amendment.
Probably so. Any other comments, Bob or Dave?
No.
Okay, there is a motion to reject C013 through C063. Any further comments or discussion? If not, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Dory, we're on to C064.
Okay, C064 through ballot C089. These were all voters that moved to Finney County from outside of Finney County, or some voters that reported to us that they no longer lived here and now lived in another county. The counting provisional ballots for people who have moved or changed addresses does not apply to out-of-county votes. Many of these voters were actively registered in another county. Some of them, actually I think all of them, were actively registered in another county, so. So on these, I would recommend that we do not count C064 through C089.
You've heard the recommendation. What's the board's desire?
Mr. Chairman, I move we reject C064 to C089.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any comments? Dwayne? Dave, Larry, Bob? Okay. There's a motion to reject C064 through C089. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Dory, starting with C090.
The next set of ballots, C090 through C099. These are all voters who have moved within the county, so they simply move from one precinct to another. And these particular voters did not receive the correct ballot, probably due to poll worker error. So what we recommend on these is that we do a partial count, and what we'll do is look at the ballot they should have received and look at the ballot they did receive and only count the races that are the same on both. So if they were not eligible to vote for Commission District 4, then that vote would not count.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'll offer the motion to accept for partial count ballot C090 through C099.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dwayne. And just a point of clarification, everyone here at the table understands what the partial count means. Okay? Any comments or questions? Larry? Bob? Dwayne? Dave?
Nope.
All right, there is a motion to accept partial count for C090 through C099. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
And abstain.
Oh, we have one abstention. And so it'll be a 4-1 vote, or excuse me, 4-A, and one abstention, not a nay. I started to say nay. All right, starting with C100.
All right, for ballot C100 through C180, a lot of ballots in this section. These were also people that have moved within the county, but these voters did receive the correct ballot. And so for these, we would recommend that you vote to count these ballots.
Goes to C,
C100 through C180.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move that we accept ballots C100 through C180.
There is a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dwayne. Comments or questions?
Were these initially counted in the counts or not?
No, none of these provisional ballots were included in the evening's counts.
And again, clarify, the last time when people moved here, we didn't, and they weren't registered, they couldn't be counted. But these people were registered somewhere else and then came here and could be counted?
No, this group of people are people who were registered in the county, who lived in the county, and moved within the county. So they just moved from one precinct to another.
And they got the correct ballot?
Yes. So the group we just had before this, they got the wrong ballot just due to poll worker error.
Okay,
And so we can only count partially.
all right, thank you.
Dwayne?
No question.
Dave?
Nope.
So we have a motion to accept the ballots C100 through C180. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes. C181 and forward.
The group of ballots, C181 through C186, these are ballots where the voter showed up at the polling location on election day, and we determined that they had been sent a mail ballot. And so we had them vote provisionally at the polling location. So we did go back afterwards and verify that they did not cast two ballots. In many cases, we received their ballot back as undeliverable. So these voters did only vote once, and they voted at the polling location, so we're recommending that we count these ballots, C181 through 186.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept ballot C181 through 186.
There is a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dave. Any further comments or discussion? Everybody's got their head down to the document, so I would say there are none. And all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes for C181 through C186 to accept those.
C187 through C188, these two ballots were where we did not find the voter in the poll book. Upon researching after Election Day, we did find them in the poll book. There was either a clerical error with their name or poll worker error that caused them not to be found that day. We did find them. They were actively registered and voted the correct ballot, and therefore we would recommend that you count these two ballots.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the two ballots, 187 and 188C.
There is a motion. Is there a second? And seconded by Bob to accept C187 and C188. Any comments or questions? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
The next group of ballots is C
189.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, C189, I was looking at the wrong number, through C206. Each of these 18 voters voted outside their party registration. So they were either Republican and insisted on a Democratic ballot, Libertarian and insisted on a Republican ballot. We pretty much had the whole gamut of what could have happened there. Because these voters requested a ballot outside of their party, we made these provisional. Since this was a primary, a partisan primary, you can only vote your party's ballot. However, this election makes it a little more complicated because we did have the constitutional amendment for which all voters were eligible to vote, including unaffiliateds and libertarians. So I have not made a recommendation on this because it's not explicitly covered in law. But I think your options would be to count these partially, where we count only the constitutional amendment on those ballots, or to reject them completely. I think those are your two options today. If we count them at all, they should only be counted provisionally, or counted just the constitutional amendment,
Constitutional amendment.
partially.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would offer the motion to accept those for partial count for the constitutional amendment.
There's a motion for counting these for constitutional amendment vote only. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Larry. Questions or comments? Dwayne?
Question, were they offered the opportunity to change party registration? Would that have made any difference?
No. In a primary, anybody who is a member of a party cannot change their party after the deadline, which this year was June 10th. So they were not allowed to change their party. The only thing that can happen past that deadline is that an unaffiliated voter may affiliate with a party.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Dave, any comments or questions? Larry? Bob? Okay. So we have a motion to accept C189 through C206 for the constitutional amendment only. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
The next set of ballots, C207 through C209, these three ballots were cast by voters after the polls closed on Election Day. On one of them, the voter actually arrived at the polling location after the polls closed, and so we allowed them to vote provisionally. The other two were mail ballots. One was received via mail and did not have a postmark before election, or on or before Election Day. The postmark was August 3rd. And the last one, that the ballot was dropped here at the election office after the polls closed on Election Day. So there are specific laws relating to when voting is to occur, and no ballots should be accepted that came in after close of polls on Election Day.
So we're being asked to reject C207 through C209, is that correct?
Correct.
And is there, what's the board's desire regarding those three ballots?
And I get a little more clarification. The quote-unquote postmark August 3rd as opposed to August 2nd. Is it possible that it was in a mailbox that didn't get picked up, and therefore, by the time the post office does their thing, that was missed?
I have-
and
I have
the voter
n-
actually had,
I have no way to know. I don't know. I would assume that the post office marks those when they enter the mail. So I have no way to know what the post office did, but the law is clear that the ballots, mail ballots have to have a postmark on or before Election Day and be received in the election office by the Friday following the election. This one was received before the Friday following the election. However, it had an August 3rd postmark.
okay, and then the second one, the person who delivered their mail-in ballot to your office the day of election, as opposed to dropping it in the post office.
Well, that was after 7 p.m. here at my office. They dropped that off.
They could have dropped it in the post office and been legal and been counted.
Again, I'm
But
not
since they-
sure. I think that the post office would probably have picked those up the next day and postmark them the next day,
And
August 3rd. So,
thank you for your clarification.
sure.
Mr. Chairman, I move we reject C 207, 208, 209.
There is a motion to reject those three ballots. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Bob. Any further discussion or questions? All right, the motion is to reject C 207 through C 209. And all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
So just for your clarification on the next sets of ballots, these are all items that are not found in your provisional item chart. I just call them technical errors because they're just kind of out of the ordinary things that aren't covered in that chart, but they are covered in law, so we'll go through each of those. The first set is C210 through C211. These were where a person requested a mail ballot, and we sent out that mail ballot, and then they later changed where they wanted or needed that mail ballot to be mailed. So what we did was send them another ballot provisionally and ensure that those did not both come back to us. So, and actually both of these came back to us as undeliverable. So I would recommend that you count these two. The voter did not vote cast their vote twice, and they did vote the correct ballot.
What is the board's desire regarding the C 210 and C 2111? Or C 211, excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept C 210 and 211.
There is a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept these two ballots. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
The next set of ballots, C212 through C220. These were all ballots where an unaffiliated voter came in to vote, and the poll worker mistakenly had them do a provisional rather than just allowing them to affiliate by filling out a registration card. So these should never have been provisional in the first place. They're only here because of poll worker error, and I would recommend that you count each of those.
Mr. Chairman, I'll offer the motion to accept C212 through C220.
Is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, I'll second.
Seconded by Dwayne. Any comments or questions? If not, it's been moved to approve C212 through C22, 200.
It's hard.
These numbers are starting to confuse me. C220, and all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Okay, the next ballot, C221, is a voter who arrived at the election office at 6:57 p.m. and needed to know where his polling location was. We were able to tell him where it was, however, he would not have time to get there prior to the polls closing, so we allowed him to vote provisionally in our office. So I would recommend that that counts.
I move we accept C221.
Is there a second to the
Second.
motion? Seconded by Bob. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
The next four ballots, C222 through C225, these are all voters who did not move within the county, but who voted at the wrong location, and just insisted on doing so, insisted on voting whatever ballot they could be given. So the poll workers did give them a ballot, made it provisional. We would just need to count these as provisional because they were not at the correct location and did not receive the correct ballot at their own insistence.
Board's desire with regard to those 4 ballots.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept as a partial count C222 through C225.
I'll second.
Seconded by Dave. Any comments or questions? Bob?
Question-wise, when we count partial, then we only count the statewide or constitutional?
No, on these, so there's one there, so the first one was a Ward 6 and the second one was a Holcomb. If Ward 6, I believe, would have Commission District 5 on it, but the Holcomb ballot would not. So we would ignore that race when we were counting between those 2 particular ballots.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? The motion is to approve partially C222 through C225. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
So the next 2 ballots, C226 through C227, these were 2 voters who were issued the wrong party ballot. Well, the first one was issued the wrong party's ballot, and he went ahead and voted it and casted it. And that ballot was given to him by poll worker error. They gave him a Republican instead of a Democrat or vice versa. After he left the polling location, I guess he got thinking about it and realized what had happened and came back and insisted on voting again the correct ballot. The second situation here is a voter that cast a ballot and then realized that he forgot to turn it over and vote on the second side, and came back and wanted to vote again, just the second side. The law is pretty clear that you are only allowed to cast 1 ballot, so I don't think that we can count either one of these.
So are they still, 1 ballot has been counted, but the second one hasn't, or neither ballot?
Correct. They both cast ballots. They both put ballots into the machine and then came back and wanted to vote again because they realized an error.
But do they get one of their 2 ballots counted?
Yes,
or
the
not?
ones in the machines have already been counted and are included in your election night totals.
Okay,
Therefore, we
thank
cannot
you.
count these.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept, or deny, 226 and 227.
Motion to reject those 2. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dwayne. Any further comments or questions? If not, all in favor of the motion to reject 226 and 227, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Okay, the last ballot on the list is C228. We don't know a lot about this ballot, but the voter checked in and had a ballot and then got frustrated and left his ballot laying there. So the board worker set it aside in a provisional envelope. So the voter didn't actually put it in the machine, but the poll worker probably should have just cast that ballot or set it aside for a hand count if it was not readable.
So the voter did not come back in and ask for that blank.
No. They did not come back. Like I said, the poll worker set it aside, but the voter did not come back. So I'm recommending that we cast this ballot for him, basically, accept this ballot.
Mr. Chairman, so I understand that the voter voted, but he didn't run it through the machine. That was
Correct.
what was lacking. So with that information, I'll offer a motion to approve for count ballot C228.
Is there a second to that motion?
I guess I still need a little more clarification. So it's a blank ballot, but we're going to count it.
I don't know what's on the ballot because it's in a provisional envelope.
Okay, it says cast blank ballot is what it says here. If it's blank, I guess we can accept it, it's still.
It would just count as an undervote, yes.
I'll second the motion.
There's the motion.
Okay, Bob's seconding the motion to approve ballot C228. Further discussion? If not, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Now, before you step away, we need to recess as Board of Canvassers until you come back to us after your work here with the committee and so forth.
Yes, yes. So based on your decisions here today, I've got a board who are all in attendance this morning. They're sitting back here with Vanessa. But we're gonna go downstairs. They're going to process these ballots either through the machine, and for the partial counts, we'll count them by hand. And then we will update all of our reporting and bring you final results. If there's anything specific you would like to see with the final results, such as tapes or anything like that, please let me know. But we will bring up the final report.
All right. Let you go to work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for those who are helping out. Appreciate that. Couldn't do it without you. Yeah, been there, done that, yeah. All right, so now we need to have a public hearing for a couple of sewer districts. And it was published at 8:40, and we just simply could not do that earlier than 8:40. So I would entertain thoughts from Jenny Newberry with regard to the sewer district number 1.
Good morning. I have proposed budget.
Well, excuse me, yeah.
Mr.
We need
Chairman,
to-
I move we move into the hearing for sewer district number 1.
Public hearings.
Public hearing.
Yeah, thank you. I caught myself, but you caught me first. There is a motion to move into public hearing. I guess we can do the public hearing, just one-time motion for both public hearings, can we not? Okay, so we need to do that twice. Okay, there is a motion and there's second to be in a public hearing for District 1. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Now Jenny can, the motion passes, by the way.
Good morning. Jenny Newberry, County Finance Director. You have the map of sewer district number 1 up there. It's Highway 50, east of Martin's Trailer Park, and includes the campgrounds out to the east there. It includes 1 pump station, 249 total hookups. 19 of those are commercial, 218 are residential, 12 are in the campground area. The annual billing is done by Public Works and adds up to approximately $77,500. The average annual receipts are approximately $75,000. Delinquency rate is 3.1. If they do not pay this in the current year, it goes on the tax bill in the following year. There is no debt associated with sewer district number 1. Average expenditures are $65,000. Approximately $50,000 of that is treatment costs that we pay to the city. The proposed levy is 3.021 for 2023. R&R is 3.044. The levy amount would be approximately $9,790 generated. Currently, the revenues cover the expenses, and the levy will bolster the reserve fund through the fund balance increase, and the end of 2021 balance for this fund was $386,000. This bolstering of the reserve fund allows for future cleaning, repairs, and potential expansion of the service area. The budget authority allows for unanticipated breaks and upgrades. The ARPA funds are slated to do the camera clean and make necessary repairs to bring the system back up to date and replace all the pumps with similar types. Recommendation is to adopt the Finney County East Side Sewer District Number 1, 2023 budget as presented with total expenditures of $241,150.
So at this point, we've got the information that the mill levy of 3.021 is less than the revenue neutral rate, so this is simply a budget hearing with regard to the sewer district number 1. I would now ask if there are any any comments from the public with regard to this particular budget. Comments from the board or questions to Jenny with regard to this?
I'll offer a motion.
Feel free.
Mr. Chairman, I offer the motion to adopt the budget for Sewer District 1 as presented.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dwayne. Any comments or questions at this point? If not, all in favor of the motion of approving the budget for 2023 for Sewer District Number 1, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes. We will close the public hearing for Sewer District Number 1. I would accept a motion to move into public hearing for Sewer District Number 2.
Mr. Chairman, I move we move into sewer district number 2, public hearing.
And is there a second? Seconded by Bob. So the public hearing for Sewer District Number 2 regarding budget for 2023 is now open. And Jenny, if you would provide us the details.
Sure. Sewer District Number 2 is out at Southwind. It has 7 pump stations. It is a lagoon system. There are 162 total hookups. One of these is commercial, the clubhouse. The other 161 are residential. The annual billing is done by the clerk's office on the tax statement. The total revenues are approximately $5,600. Average annual receipts are approximately $5,000 with a delinquency rate of 2.2%. There is no debt associated with Sewer District Number 2. Average expenditures are $35,000, mostly related to wages, repair and maintenance, and the utilities. Proposed levy is 4.041 for 2023. The revenue neutral rate is 4.058. There is approximately $35,500 generated from the mill levy. Currently, revenues do not cover the expenditures. The levy is required to cover general operations and expenditures, leaving approximately $5,000 to bolster the fund balance annually for unanticipated expenditures. End of 2021 balance was $42,000, and ARPA funds are also slated to camera clean and make necessary repairs, replace the pumps with similar types, and expand to the existing developments that do not currently have access to the sewer district. The recommendation is to adopt the Finney County Sewer District Number 2 2023 budget as presented with total expenditures of $65,040.
You've heard Jenny's report, and the mill levy that's recommended for 2023 is 4.041, which is less than the revenue neutral rate of 4.058. And therefore, it's a budget hearing, revenue neutral does not come into play. What's the board's desire regarding sewer district number, comments from the public with regard to sewer district 2? I got ahead of myself. What's the board's desire with regard to sewer district number 2?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the budget as presented for Sewer District 2.
There is a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Larry. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor of that motion to approve the 2023 budget for Sewer District Number 2, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank
Jenny,
you.
thank you. And the public hearing for Sewer District 2 is now closed. Moving on with the business items, I didn't see Patty in the audience, but we do have a request to name a new member to the Finney County Committee on Aging. Robert, any comments from your standpoint as far as this being submitted to us or anything?
No, I do not.
Okay. So, but there was a letter in our packet from Patty, the director, asking that we, saying that Darlene Lucas has shown interest, and the board is recommending that she be appointed to a 3-year term, and replacing Dick Monaco, who resigned. So, what is the board's desire regarding the the Board of Finney County Committee on Aging Board appointment?
That ought to be a Larry honor.
I move, but, we're always looking for volunteers, so I would move we approve this.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Are there comments or questions? Larry, Bob? Dwayne, Dave? If not, all in favor of the motion to appoint Darlene Lucas to this board, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you for that. Then we get into a couple of things from neighborhood development. And John, are you doing the presentation on one of the rezonings? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion and vote.
Okay, all right. We have one recusal for the Resolution 36, 2022. And John, go ahead.
Good morning. The applicant, Robert Dries, is requesting to rezone the property generally located at 11815 Mennonite Road in Finney County, Kansas, from SE Suburban Estates District to RI Rural Industrial District. There is one single-family home on the property that is currently being used as an office and not for residential purposes. The applicant is wanting to add an additional storage building to the property. The property is currently non-conforming. Storing farm equipment and machinery in the SE Suburban Estates District is not permitted use in the SE District. According to Section 22.080 of the Finney County Regulations, non-conforming uses may be permitted to continue, provided that no structural alterations except those required by law or resolution are made therein, and the non-conforming use is not discontinued or abandoned for a period of 1 year. The addition of the proposed accessory building would increase the nonconformity of the property unless it is rezoned. Rezoning the property will also allow for the storage of farm equipment and machinery as well. The proposed use of this property as rural industrial is not consistent with the comprehensive plan / future land use potential of residential. Storing of farm equipment and machinery is a permitted use in the RI industrial district. The governing body may approve the request according to the criteria in section 27.040 below. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning request at the July 21st, 2022 meeting, and there are three alternatives. The governing body may adopt the Planning Commission's recommendation by approving the proposed resolution. The second alternative is the governing body may override the Planning Commission's recommendation by a 2/3 majority vote. And the last alternative is the governing body may return the recommendation to the Planning Commission with a statement specifying the basis for the governing body's failure to approve or disapprove, and staff recommends alternative 1.
Heard the presentation. What is the board's desire with regard to Resolution 36-2022?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Dries came in and asked for a waiver, which we granted on a motion that I offered. And he's following up in what he was asked to do for rezoning, and so I'll offer the motion to approve the rezoning request.
Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Bob. Any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. And with a notation that there's one recusal or abstention, Gabby, with regard to that. Okay, thank you, John. Is Mackenzie doing the next one?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the applicant, Louise Castaneda, is requesting to rezone the property generally located at 2906 West Mary Street in Finney County, Kansas, from GC General Commercial District to I-1, I-2 Light to Medium Industrial District. The property is currently vacant. Mr. Castaneda would like to rezone the property for semi-truck parking. The proposed use of the property as light to medium industrial is consistent with the comprehensive plan of mixed use, and the I-1, I-2 district is the appropriate zoning district for semi-truck parking. The governing body may approve the request according to the criteria listed in section 27.040, and below is a list of that criteria. The Planning Commission did recommend approval for the rezoning request at the July 21st meeting, and you have three alternatives before you today. First, the governing body may adopt the Planning Commission's recommendation by approving the proposed resolution. 2, the governing body may override the Planning Commission's recommendation by a 2/3 majority vote. And 3, the governing body may return the recommendation to the planning commission with a statement specifying the basis for the governing body's failure to approve or disapprove. And staff recommends alternative 1.
You've heard the recommendation from Neighborhood Development and Planning Commission. What's the board's desire?
Well, Mr. Chairman, with the amount of industrial activity in this county, we need truck parking, and so I would more than welcome the approval of this request.
That being a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dwayne. Discussion or comments or questions? Bob?
Yes, during the discussion of Planning Commission, the petitioner mentioned that they had wanted to build a facility to work on their truck inside and park a truck. And the question came up, is it 1 truck or 2 or 12? And they indicated that it was 1 or 2. And I like Larry's comment, is if they want to make that available for multiple trucks, will it still fit within this zoning criteria if they end up with 10 or 20 trucks on that site?
Yes, there is no limitation to the amount of trucks being parked on a property within the I-1, I-2 district. Now, they will have to park all of those trucks on an improved surface. So as long as the current improved surface is, fits the amount of trucks that they want to put on there, then that's fine. If they want to expand that improved surface, they have to go through the site plan process again.
And so, be it hard surface or fencing or whatever, there are some additional hoops. But long-term, that could be multiple truck parking without a phenomenal added criteria, changing a zoning, changing a use, anything else.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
I think driving by it frequently as I do, it looked to me like they've already have it fenced.
Yeah, they put a fence shortly after they purchased the property, I believe.
Yeah, my question was really the contiguous property to the west. I know, was it Smart that is doing something there? Is it also I-2?
Yes, he just
Okay.
rezoned that to I-1, I-2 earlier this year.
And then there's a road barrier to the east. Okay, thanks.
Mr.
Other
Chairman,
comments or questions?
well, one quick question. What piece of property, is it this one or the one immediately to the west that the county owned that we sold here a couple months ago? It's west of
To
that?
the west.
Okay, thank you.
Dwayne, any comments? Questions? So we have a motion to approve Resolution 37-2022. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Mackenzie. Appreciate that. Well, now we have a person coming to the podium wherever he is. Oh, there he is. That has not been with us for a while. So come on up, Bob. And as you come to the podium, for the people that are out online, please state name and your position.
Sure. My name is Bob Wetmore. I'm Executive Co-Director of Great Plains Development, along with the person that's not here today, Faye Trent. Faye Trent is also our Executive Co-Director. And we haven't been here physically, but we have been doing all kinds of things the last 2 years. So I'd like to bring you up to date. I'd also like to introduce you to AJ Amaro. He's a loan and grant assistant for us. And hopefully in a couple of years, he'll be standing up here, which knock on wood, that's the way it's gonna work. I do have, to make it easier for you, a physical copy. So let me give you a physical copy of the report. It's a lot easier to look at.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bob.
For those of you that aren't entirely familiar with Great Plains Development, many, many years ago, the state of Kansas created an economic development district concept in the state of Kansas. And it allowed regional agencies, and if you look at the last sheet in there, you'll see the map of all those regional agencies. It allowed regional agencies across the state to provide services to counties and cities. And it's kind of a two-hat system. One is a loan service, so we're the folks that work with economic development and help, actually they punt all kinds of opportunities at Great Plains. And then we have this lovely list of all the loans and different grant programs that are out there. So our job is to assist economic development, assist you, and help you get all these different programs out there. So one hat is a loan hat. We're the people that assist with packaging SBA 504 and 7A loans. Those are SBA loans that go through banks. We're also the people that help assist with all the different revolving loan funds out there, and it could be everything from EDA, U.S. Economic Development Administration, it could be USDA, Rural Development Loan Funds. Most importantly for you, your CDBG, Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund, which we have a forever contract with Finney County to help administrate that, do the semi-annual reports, make sure everything goes to Topeka the way it's supposed to go. We also monitor and service all the loans. So we not only help with the upfront, get the loans done, but we take it all the way through the end and help service the loans. You haven't seen me in a couple of years, but we've been very busy. When COVID first started, the state of Kansas, of all places, called out here and said, hey, we've got all these programs coming along to help with COVID. Could you assist with this? So some of the early things that you heard, the higher loans that the state of Kansas came out with for the hospitality, restaurant and entertainment industry, they asked us to help, but we took a little over, close to half of those loans, not only administrated them, got them done, put them in a portfolio, but followed up on them. The state eventually forgave those loans. SBA came out with the PPP program, and within about 24 hours of SBA announcing that, we had 33 phone calls from banks in the region, a whole bunch from Garden City, saying, how do we get involved in this program and what do we do? So we assisted SBA in getting that information out. You might have heard of the emergency disaster loans that SBA did, the EIDL loans. We got involved in all those too. You had your own funds. The city of Garden City also had their funds. HUD came along and said, oh, all those CDBG funds can be used as emergency loan funds. Quick, let's get those out to the people that actually qualify and need those funds. So we did the city of Garden City. We ran out of funds, and the city of Garden City asked the county, and the county asked the state, and the state said, sure, you can help with those funds. So a number of the loans that you actually have outstanding right now are some of those emergency loan funds that actually help with those. If you want to go to the buff page, and I'll make this as quick as possible, the buff page in the front on the letterhead kind of gives you a rundown of this. But currently you have a balance. I'm just going to give you the balance, and I'm not going to mystify you with all the leads and all the regular things that we've been doing in the loan market. But obviously we get leads from economic development, and we try to help develop those loans conventionally also. But to kind of backtrack to the COVID, know that as of those emergency loans, even getting them out, you currently have a balance of $275,404.48 as of June 27th. Again, most of those are coming from the emergency response loans. 9 of those are active. Only Another Look Salon and Spa is past due. Again, these are public funds, so we have to disclose to you if there's any past dues. And they made their last payment in May, but I've got to tell you that all of the people that borrowed funds are very cooperative and very open with trying to do what they can do to make payments. So I'm not too worried about them catching up and actually being current. And that is a monthly thing that we do. We actually have a staff member in-house that contacts all these on a monthly basis. So actually on a weekly basis, just so you know, because we have a multi-step process where if they're late by a week, we contact them. If they're late by 2 weeks, we recontact them again. If they make it all the way to the month, they're in trouble, and we get our sticks out and start doing bad things to get them to respond. But no, we keep with them to keep up with it. I want you to look at that project list sometime when you have time. These are all the projects that Finney County has been doing over the years. There's quite a few. There is a portfolio of all the counties that we work with in there, so if you want to compare counties, you're more than welcome to do that. I want to remind you of the data portal that University of Kansas put together. This is the best darn thing on the planet. We use it daily at work. Know that you are welcome to access this portal. This portal's designed for the different regions, so you can pull down Great Plains' region, but you can drill right down into county data. Why is this useful? All this information is created by KU, WSU, and K-State, and it goes to the legislature. So this is what the legislature uses for actual data. The neat thing about this portal is it's live streaming, so all this data is current. You don't have to wait for the abstract at all. You can actually go on here and look. So know that that's there. Couple last things. We do have a general membership, and by the way, thank you very, very much for allowing us the use of one of your members as a director. He's fantastic. He's learned a lot over the years and probably knows more than any of the rest of us at this point. Dwayne is actually an appointee of yours. Marty Nusser is also an appointee. You may change these at any point. You're welcome to. So if you want to discuss about that, it's not unusual either it's a point of contact for Great Plains, basically, is what that is. Yes, sir.
I correct you. There's no option here. I am the appointee.
There is no option?
He signed a lifetime contract, yeah.
I saw a copy of that lifetime contract. By the way, he is fantastic, and I want to reiterate that as far as someone that is plugged into everything that goes on out here. He's also plugged into the region. And as Dwayne knows, we've gone statewide with a lot of our services. So we're gaining knowledge as we go along that we're able to bring out here and help out with statewide. That sits there as your choice. If you have been fantastic the last couple of years during COVID, supporting us, we appreciate that support. The city of Garden City also supplies half of that support. If you would consider that again for another year, this year's based on per capita, 25 cents per capita, is your half, 4050.00. If you would be interested in renewing that, it makes a huge difference to us. Our budget, region-wide, our budget is about a $425,000 budget. I'd like to tell you these memberships bring in a lot. They bring in maybe $38,000 a year, so we piece together a lot of different things to make our budget. There is that map in the end that's also available to you. Know that we actually sometimes share projects across boundaries, just so you know. For instance, the Russell Water District is working in North Barton County right now, all the way down to Hoisington. It is not unusual for us to actually work outside of our area and participate in programs. Questions, thoughts? CDBG programs are available. Finney County doesn't usually qualify low to moderate income wise for some of those. Doesn't mean we can't target some projects from time to time and figure those out. Our job is to help with those no matter how it works. We try with Holcomb off and on. There's an occasional project that we try to work with Holcomb on. New numbers are coming out from HUD soon, so those numbers may change. And what does that mean? It may mean someone like a Holcomb might accidentally automatically qualify. You can qualify those areas if they don't by a survey, but you can imagine you have to survey every single household in order to qualify a district, so. But just know that that's an option for the future.
Bob, thank you. I'm going to turn first to Dwayne and see if there's anything you want to add as a board member to Bob's report. before I ask my question.
Well, basically, I'd like to commend Bob and his staff. They're very thorough in on our board meetings to give us probably more information than we care to hear. But we especially appreciate the ongoing discussion with potential businesses in the region and Finney County. And that, to me, is the highlight of the meeting. So I appreciate Bob and his staff, and they do a great job.
We truly appreciate that. We also appreciate economic development. It's been pretty seamless with them over the last few years too. So that makes our job doable. So we appreciate that. Lana, thank you.
Dave, any comments or questions?
Well, not a question, a comment. When I became a commissioner about 14 years ago, you folks came over and it appeared that when you ran out of money, you were out of business. And the funds were being depleted, but you've done well, Bob.
Thank you. We're not out of business, and we figured out a way to keep it
Looks like
going.
you're gonna be in business for a while, so that looks good.
Thank you. Larry?
A couple questions.
Yes, sir.
The first one, simple one, but why is McPherson County all by their lonesome?
That's a good question. The first CDC, Certified Development Company for SBA in the state of Kansas was McPherson County. And Dave Odell is retired, lives in Florida, but travels back here, still meets with us on a statewide level, because we all meet together 4 times a year. So we left him alone there. He's not really a CDC. His jobs go to SCED in Wichita. So North Central goes to Wichita, and that one McPherson County goes to Wichita when they get an SBA loan. It only relates to real SBA loans. As a Network Kansas participator in their programs, they're a busy city and county with Network Kansas programs there also.
Secondly, when you get an application in that you turn down or reject or whatever, can you direct them where they need to look or ask them, or you work with them, try to make?
We do, and know that as a staff, we don't reject or accept. We package, and then we get you to Finney County Economic Development. We get you to the city of Garden City. We get you to Finney County, and if we haven't activated the Finney County Loan Review Committee, we get them activated quickly. So we're able to do that. Honestly, it's rare that we can't. There are so many options nowadays. It's rare that we can't figure out a way to package it. Now, can they have a normal rejection and they just don't qualify? Absolutely. But banks come first. We direct them to all the banks first. So we send them to Darrett, we send them to Cole, we send them to everybody first. And then we work with the different entities. We think about the county funds first also, and then we think about economic development next. Then we have the other tiers down below there. So our job is to help with that. Know that we've got a couple from downtown Garden City right now. They're needing some help and assistance. We get them to the different people that might be able to help them. And we also do credit counseling. We pull that credit report early, and if it's that, we'll counsel with them. And we've had people come back in a year to 2 years, and their 500 credit score is now 750, and it's like, yay, they did it. So that helps get them into the bank. That helps get them into the different loan review, the committees individually.
Bob?
I guess I really appreciate the fact that you envision a team, that it's not just Great Plains, but you need to figure out how is it that we can make this business successful. And by packaging, and then secondarily, the fact that private business is first. You know, they get to come along, they get to be the options, and you help them qualify. It's really important to help them stand on their own and then, more importantly, educate so that they go forward knowing how to be successful. But everything I've heard about this organization, as I'm relatively new here, is so positive because everybody speaks to the cooperation level. And I think we're very fortunate to have you. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Bob, thank you for your report today. Appreciate that.
You're welcome, and if you would think about us, I'll leave this behind.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It's an agreement,
Yep.
and I have one for you.
Speaking of the agreement, Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the membership agreement with Great Plains Development for this coming year.
There is a
Second.
motion to accept the agreement for this coming year, and there is a second to that motion by Bob. Any further comments or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes, and that membership fee is $4,050.
That's half here, isn't it? I was thinking it
Should
was
add
eight.
to mine that authorize the chairman to sign
Yep,
that.
Well, yeah, that to me was understood, but
okay, sorry.
that's a calendar year of 2022.
That is correct, calendar year.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate
Appreciate
it. AJ, we're not that scary, so when it's your turn.
I won't be that shy, but it is about my second rodeo with Bob on the road so far, so I'm just taking notes.
All right, thank you. All right, just, huh?
At 10 o'clock.
Well, yeah, I know, but we can get one more thing in before 10, so.
Okay, I'm out of coffee.
Well, go get your coffee. And Robert, we've got your name on this.
Copy too, boss.
Yes. We've got Robert's name on this Community Facilities Needs Assessment. I believe that document was in your board packets. And Robert may have some comments. I don't mind taking the lead on it also. But we do have the author of the document with us today too, in case there are questions or clarifications, things like that. But Robert, do you want to say anything first before I make some comments?
No, it's just that in summary, you've had quite a group work towards trying to identify what the needs may be for this RFP. And as you stated, Mike is here, and she'd probably be a good one to put on the spot up here at the podium. You're welcome, Mike.
We may want to do that, but hold on just so you're not standing at the podium too long. Let me make a few comments, and then we will have you come and make yours as well. But I have mentioned to this board before that I, earlier this year, had been hearing comments about our convention conference trade show space in the county, and I'm looking for the correct folder here. And I'm not finding it right now, but nevertheless, here it is. Sorry for the confusion, especially of those of you online that are trying to follow me.
Good luck.
Is your microphone off? No.
No, I actually turned it on. My coffee cup was hiding the little button.
I've got too many folders in front of me today, but I wanted to have this one so I'm stating things correctly. But in our governing body priorities, we have said, and we may or may not keep it in here because we're going to be talking about that a little later on this morning and ongoing. But we've said in our goals and objectives that one of our long-term future goal priorities is to work with community partners to promote Finney County as a destination of choice, which includes subpoint improved convention center facilities. So based on that, what we have in our priorities, early this year, I heard conversation about the community college adding on to Pauline Joyce. I heard conversation about the Starbond project possibly restarting. And the one that I failed to mention in previous conversations, There's also a conversation going on in our community about a children's museum, I believe it is, or something to that effect. But I was hearing these different conversations, and so with that, and with one of our priorities being Finney County being a destination of choice, I felt like we needed to bring a group of stakeholders together and start a conversation. So in March, after visiting with the community college, finding out a little bit more about their project, we had 2 different meetings with stakeholders from the city, the county, Holcomb, the school districts, the community college, economic development, chamber, CVB, and so forth. And we started the discussion about do we need to do anything? And if we do need to do something, what would it be? At the end of the meeting, at the end of March, it was determined that a feasibility or assessment or audit, whatever you want to call it, of our current facilities, both brick and mortar as well as fields and other types of facilities, was needed before we could move forward with anything else. Due to some professional and personal issues, the project did not move forward until late this summer. But at that March meeting, CVB, Roxanne specifically with CVB, and Micah with the chamber were tasked with or were charged with the task of coming up with an RFP, a request for proposal, or an RFQ, request for qualification, whatever we want to term that. Then last week, and I'll let Micah speak to how the development of this document came about and her thoughts, because she is the primary author of this document. But last week, we had a meeting of those same stakeholders, and at that meeting, it was decided that this task force, this ad hoc group, needed to take this document to the respective governing boards and ask for, I don't know what the right word would be, Robert, ask for authority, I don't know, permission, or what?
Just support to move
Support
forward with
to move
issuance
forward.
of it. There's
To-
no cost
to
to
move-
the economy.
Yeah, support to move forward with this particular document, and that's why we're here today. The city is going to take this subject up tomorrow at its city commission meeting. The college is going to have it on its agenda on August 23rd, and so forth and so on. I've tried to get the document out to you ahead of time so that if you have questions and so forth, you'll be able to ask those. And my final comment at this point is there is no funding at this particular time. That would be dependent upon what the proposals might come in and what they might look like. And so then the funding question would be taken up at that point. But there's a reservation in the document that we can reject any and all proposals if necessary. So no group is on the hook for funding of this particular assessment or audit, but we are asking governing boards to support issuance of this request for proposal as you see in your packets today. So with that, Micah, now if you want to step forward and just explain a little bit how the document was authored and constructed, and then if they have questions, we'll open it up to those questions.
Okay, good morning. So basically everything Alon said, the group came together in March, and over a couple of months, Roxanne and I specifically worked together to create the RFP that's in front of you today. We did some research with other municipalities and communities that had RFPs similar in nature. What makes this RFP different is that our scope of services is looking at not only current facilities, but also probable facilities. What kind of facilities is Garden City lacking? Facility needs assessment, and looking at just what could our community bring in. And so that's why this RFP is a little bit different, is that it takes that scope of services and breaks it down into two different sections. As Lon stated, we were not tasked with talking about funding or looking at any funding sources of, if this comes back and it's whatever dollar amount they put to it, that was not our task. So we didn't look into any of that. Our task was simply to create the RFP. And as he said, we are just looking support from all of the community boards to push this forward. As today, you guys have that option in front of you. Tomorrow, I believe the City of Garden City, the Chamber Board visits tonight, and I believe the college, school district, and CVB boards later on in the month. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Dave, I'm gonna look over to you first.
Not yet. I've got to stop and think about all of this.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Dwayne?
Just focusing on gathering information, and I know this project needs to move forward somehow or another, and I appreciate it. This is the start.
This is the start, exactly.
Larry?
How do you, who do you send this to? Or I mean, what?
So in our proposal, it's outlined that it will be published on the Fenney County CVB website. And then from there, that's a little bit outside of my area. So I'm guessing the city and maybe even the county might have, places that they send it to and direct them to that website. So that's.
When you surveyed other communities about this, did they express how many people they had RFPs come back from, or?
Didn't ask that question. I did look specifically with some contacts that I have at City of Wichita and then the City of Colorado Springs. They had similar ones. I didn't ask about how many RFPs they had come back.
And I might just simply add, the city has a relationship with the Hunden Group. They certainly would be recipient of this. CVB has a couple of organizations that are in this kind of work, so they definitely would be recipients of this, plus opening it up to others. But we know of a couple of groups that would definitely receive this request for proposal.
When you were surveying other communities, did you find one that similar in size as Finney County? Is there?
There's a wide range of different types of RFPs based on, what parameters the community looks for. So my task was taking all of that, putting it together, and then, making it match the needs of our community. So, because there's no other community like Garden City or in Finney County.
And then lastly, and then we'll get to Bob, but lastly, and I don't remember the page number, but it's number 4 here under, what's the heading that's under? In the introduction background section of the RFP, and this was brought into the discussion just last week to reference some of the projects that we know about so that they don't miss taking into account some things that are just simply on the horizon that are not constructed at this point. So you see some of those, including our exhibition building, which there's the structural study has been done and so forth and so on.
So when these companies contact for local contact, they will go through this committee, I take it?
Well, they'll go through CVB for their proposal. Then whether or not this task force that's in place now is that screening group, I mean, it can be, but it doesn't have to be the screening group for those proposals. But it certainly is one that's in formation, if you will, as a task force that could be the screening group. And we did talk about that briefly.
Well, if you have multiple reports come back, it'll be interesting to, it'll take quite a bit of time to screen through the proposals.
Absolutely, and I think that's where we, defer back to the larger group. Again, the CVB and the Chamber, we were just tasked to create the document, and then everything from that point forward on the grading or the assessments of the RFPs, that goes back to the larger group. So our task is simply in creating that document and then taking it back to them when the RFPs come due, and any further action that we take will be, my understanding is, will be taken amongst that larger group.
And lastly, we had really good input last week on when the document, when Micah's document was presented to that group with regard to questions and observations, and We changed the name of the document. We added this paragraph 4. We changed the date of when they would be due from October to September to get things moving faster. So it's been a really good working task force as far as input and so forth. Bob?
Yeah, just, well, several comments. And I'm going to start with the title, Request for Qualification, parentheses, RFP. I think the whole document's about an RFP, request for a proposal, and I would think that that would be one thing that we could maybe change, because it's, you speak a lot about qualifications, but you're asking for a proposal, so I think it ought to be a request for proposal.
Let me jump in there, Bob. I think you did mean to change that to, we just didn't get the wording changed. We did agree last week that it would be request for proposal.
Yes, we did.
We do still have the word qualification.
Gotcha.
I didn't catch that either because
we
I've
can
looked
make
at
that
it too many
change.
times. But it is a request for proposal, Bob.
Okay, thank you. When we speak about the, on the next page, then on project description, we talk about having space for public offices. Is it envisioned that if there was a new building, it would be open for county offices, city offices, independent businesses? Would the CVB and the chamber be moving into it? You know, just in the background as to what the thought process was there. When we talk about evaluating all of the existing facilities, hotels, motels, fields, et cetera, would the goal be that we were fine-tuning what they do, or would the goal be to build a competing space with private industry, or would the goal be a private-public process like is identified a little later?
Exactly, private-public. We want them to look at all different aspects and different opportunities, whether that be public, private. It really, the sky's the limit here. We want them to look at everything, and it's specifically what is Garden City missing, what is Finney County lacking in terms of these types of facilities.
Okay.
And I think, Bob, to the first point of your comment, though, if a facility is not doing what this proposer would think it could be doing to make Finney County the destination of choice, it might just simply be a repurposing or an upgrading of that facility, not a competing facility necessarily. The new facility, what we had envisioned in this task force, would only come after we've looked at everything else, and is there anything that can be done to improve what we currently have. That's why the need for the assessment and audit came about.
Okay, thank you. The, and near the bottom of that page, the primary purpose is to create a facility that is revenue generating. Now, revenue generating, I guess, means anything. I read the report that we got in our committee from the fairgrounds as an example, and there is revenue generated from the fairgrounds. Now, not anywhere near what it costs us to operate it, but it generates revenue. Is there any kind of a goal that is revenue generating, that is sustaining the cost, or anything else like that? Is there any balance that we're looking for there?
Again, we don't know, so we really want to see what opportunities are there, everything from the smallest type of facilities to the largest. I mean, this is just a very high level look at what are we missing. So it could be from the smallest type of facility to the largest. I hope I answered that question okay.
Well, and I would just simply add again, since I've been the convener of this group, the tone of the conversation has been for the proposer who comes back to us to provide us with ideas on what that might look like. Exactly. And then it's up to us as Finney County, the various boards, to either accept or reject those ideas.
Okay. When you were talking about the concepts of the things that are kind of in planning, the community college, maybe an expansion, Sports of the World, I'm not familiar about the Southeast Community Park project. What is that, please?
Well, I don't know that I can answer it as well. It's a city project, but
It's a city park, there's an amphitheater. That's about what I know about it out on Southeast.
Skating and water park too, isn't it, included?
No,
Not
not
in
necessarily in
Southeast
this, not in this southeast park, but there is the talk about the amphitheater
Right.
piece of it.
Right.
But it's a city project, Bob.
Okay. The method of solicitation, I'd really tie on to what Larry brought forward earlier. Putting it on the website of the CVB certainly is not going to be enough. And I'm sure you have contacts, because obviously somebody helped create this document, somebody who's done this before or used the boilerplate or whatever, but we really need to cast a broad net to people, you know, because whoever helped develop Dodge City and their convention center, we want to know what they thought they were building and what they got, so that we don't end up with something that is a great edifice that is very seldom used.
I think the goal there was that all of the different entities could link to the CVB website. They could put information on their specific websites and then link back over to the CVB. We absolutely want all of those different organizations that are participating to have information about it somewhere on their website.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then basically, when we talk about the proposal requirements, this is the first time we talk about a feasibility study. And I guess, to me, that would be kind of one of the first steps, and it really ties back into what the Dodge City deal is. Do we need something? What is our gap? And what do we need to fill, as opposed to saying, okay, we're going to build this, now how are we going to use it? And I guess that's what these experts will bring to town when they come and look over our shoulder. Is that correct?
That's exactly 100% what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you. On the results, Lon, I appreciate your comment on getting it started earlier. When there were 7 items that the proposer needed to come forward, one that I guess is missing, if they submit their proposals on or before September 30th, and then your group, task force, selection process, whatever, interviewers, and then is there a time frame for them to do the study? Is this a 3-month study? Is this a 6-month study? Is this a study until we feel we got it right? Is there any time frame? You talk about the commitment from the company. You talk about the key elements, the key team that's going to be here and who's going to do the work. But we never really talk about how long it's going to take.
Yeah, it's not something that we addressed in the RFP. It's definitely something we could take back and look at. But you're
Traditionally,
right.
those are things that are normally negotiated with the one that is selected, the timing of that, the work and so forth. And they'll have resources. There are some other ongoing studies, as Lon has pointed out, with both the college and the city, that the successful firm will have access to in order to expedite their data research, in order to come up with a overarching view, if you will, of what the community might look like in the future. So that'll be a negotiated aspect through that committee.
Okay, you know, to me, time would also be a factor. You know, dollars is one thing, capability of the service and the staff, but also commitment to reach a solution. But, you know, it's a personal opinion. When we start talking about the current facilities assessments, and it comes to shelters, we've talked a little bit about what shelters might mean. I think, I'm assuming the emergency management services and their concepts of what shelters are would be part of this team that would be providing input.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think that gets through the questions that I had for now.
Okay. Like I said a little bit ago, and as Micah has reiterated, the task of CVB and the chamber was not to put a dollar number to something, but rather prepare a document that could be dispersed and distributed to organizations that could help us do an assessment or an audit of our current facilities and give us ideas for future facilities to improve Finney County as a destination. And so with that, what we're asking for today is the county commission's support of issuing this RFP. And as Robert does very succinctly said a minute ago, any time frame, any dollars, and so forth would be a part of the negotiation with whatever firm is selected. And then I will just reiterate one thing that Mike has said. The other piece of the conversation that's been said several times is CVB will be the website. However, every other organization is to have a link to that website, so it's fed into one, but we're all linked to that. So that is a part of what this process would be if this is approved by the boards for issuance.
If I could elaborate on that a little bit more. When we had the larger meetings back in March, it seemed to be the group's consensus that CVB really take, not necessarily the lead, but the more proactive approach on this. And so that's why we decided to put it on the CVB website. They felt like that was the home that it needed. That was the consensus of that group, I think, and have everyone linked to it there.
Yeah, and I would concur with that consensus. Yeah, Dave.
I have a couple of questions and a comment. I'm going to offer the comment first. Years ago in the little town of Colby, they built a thing called the Colby Community Center, and it was kind of in Fike Park, and that thing was one of the most used buildings going because the concept was there to cover about anything you could think of. It had a basketball floor, it had a stage so you could put on a show, it had meeting rooms, had breakout rooms, and now Colby has built quite a little larger Colby Community Center. So I wonder if it would be worthwhile doing a little checking, not just with the Dodge City of the world, but Colby, and see what kind of background they had in that building. And then my question, back in my emergency management days, a couple of different times I was involved in trying to host a statewide convention where you might have, I'm going to give a hypothetical, a couple hundred people come in. So as an emergency manager living here for years, I didn't know who all I needed to call the Chamber of Commerce and see what support you had and what recommendations for meeting, call the Convention and Visitors Bureau and so on. And I formed an opinion then, and I still have it today, that we need somewhere a central operator, a contact that is well advertised, so when somebody calls the Finney County area for some kind of a get-together, that person, that central office, central telephone operator knows all of the available meeting sites and so on.
We have a list of those places at our office.
Okay, so that's my point, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would simply ask whether the board is willing to support the issuance of this RFP as the number one alternative that was listed on our cover letter today.
I don't have any problem supporting it. It sounds like a good idea. It's just that I am concerned that we're not going to get it out to enough people that will get proposals back, is what.
Well, we're going to, yeah.
Can I comment on that?
Go ahead.
Because we do periodically, our office and Public Works office gets solicitation from various companies that do exactly this type of work. And so it's, they monitor websites to look at various opportunities for them to propose on. So I don't think we'll have any issues as regards to that.
And Micah has said it a couple of times, but the intent is to get this distributed out as widely as possible. So is that your motion, Larry, to support the issuance of this RFP?
I thought you wanted consensus.
Well, we probably,
I support.
I agree. I think it's consensus at this point. We don't have any dollar number or things
Yeah.
like that.
well, there is no dollar attachment to this, and it certainly can be done by consensus. I don't have a problem with that. But I was, a lot of times you guys are wanting formal votes when I think consensus works, so this is one of those.
Got you this time.
Yeah, that's fine. So is it the consensus of the board to support this issuance of this RFP? Again, repeating, there's no commitment dollar-wise until a proposal comes in that is accepted, and then the dollars questions comes back to the board.
Then we'll have a motion.
Okay. So it is the consensus of this
I don't want to
board.
run your meeting for you, Mr. Chairman.
You're the vice chair, so you can help me out. So it is the consensus of this board to support the issuance of the RFP as presented.
It is a consensus.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
All right. And I got that consensus from all the other board members. So with that, we're going to adjourn for a few minutes, let's say till 20 after for a break. And at 20 after, we will convene into executive session, and I'm asking for permission to do that. That would include our county administrator, our general counsel, the HR director, and for the discussion of attorney-client privilege. And also, I think I was told earlier 15 minutes, or should we have 20? 15? 15 minutes. So we'll reconvene in executive session with an appropriate motion at 10:20, and reconvene as a board at 10:35. So I would entertain a motion for the executive session following a little break.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into executive session after the break for 15 minutes.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Larry. All in favor of doing so, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. So the executive session will start at 10:20, and we will reconvene in here at 10:35. minutes after the time. No, in executive session, no action was taken and no action is needed following executive session. Huh? Dave's forgetting signatures? Yeah. Well, help him out over there. We're on the subject of board governance, and the canvassers are not back in the room, so we'll continue with that when the canvassers get back, led by Dory. We'll reconvene into the Board of Canvassers. While we're doing that, also, board members, there's some things here needing to be signed on the sewer district budgets, and we'll pass those around. The first thing, though, before we talk about the governance goals and priorities and so forth, one of our priorities has been for some time, and we even put a time frame on it last time we met, is to meet with some of the regional counties. And we last did that in 2018 or 19. We haven't done that for a couple of years, or 2 or 3 years.
That's when I was chairman.
It was. We did one when I was chair, and then the following year, one as when you were chair, Larry. That is correct.
19 because of the COVID year.
That is correct. Yeah, I couldn't remember the number of the years, but that COVID was one of the culprits. So what I asked Robert and Dory to look at was convening the regional counties on September 6th, the evening of September 6th or September 7th. And the reason that I asked for those dates was twofold. Number one is the hearings in each of the counties should be completed by the morning, including ours, should be completed for budgets and revenue neutral by the 6th. Some of them are in late August, several of them are on the 6th of September. And secondly, we have a KLPG annual meeting set for Garden City on the 15th and the 16th, when KLPG will be starting to talk about legislative items. And so I just feel like strategically it would be good to be after the budget hearings to have some conversation about how did everybody come out with revenue neutral and so forth, but also before KLPG, so that if there's some items that we think legislatively there's consensus for, we can present those to the KLPG group 15th and 16th. So the 6th is a Tuesday evening, and the 7th would be a Wednesday evening. We're still working on location, but it very possibly would be here in this building or at the fairgrounds. We're contemplating information for both of those locations with a catered dinner of some sort. May not be a heavy dinner, but doing something food-wise. So first question is whether you're interested in doing this. Second question is whether the 6th or the 7th is the better date. And thirdly, the other question, last time we invited Scott, Kearney, Haskell, Gray, and Grant, but I'm wondering whether we shouldn't invite Lane, Hodgman, Wichita counties, Ness County also, because they touch us, if you will, and there are people who commute from those counties into Finney County for work and pleasure and shopping. So I would ask whether or not we want to expand the group beyond the 5 that we invited last time, and then whether 6th or 7th would be the appropriate date if there's a consensus, if there's a consensus to have a regional county meeting. So with that, I'll look to Larry first.
Extra one.
Oh, this extra, okay.
I think it's always good to talk to them. I don't know, it depends on what your, how many people respond. Tedrow room at the junior college works really good because there's a kitchen available and they'll cater it. And if it's open, that's the next question.
Well, we had talked about the Beth Tedrow, but then we also thought, well, maybe it'd be good to expose them to some of our county facilities. So that's why we were looking at the others, and then having Great Western do the catering possibly for food. So that's still up in the air as far as place and food provider, but certainly we'll take that under advisement too.
The 7th, I'd vote for the consensus, the 7th.
7th is your vote, and would you also entertain inviting a few more counties, or keep it to the
Well,
list we had last time?
Figure out how many you can have from, what your capacity is.
All right.
And I'd work from that.
Sure, okay, that's fair enough.
Granted that there will be a lot of people who won't show probably.
Right, yeah, there'll be a number that won't, yeah. Bob?
We have meetings on the 6th, right? Our commission meeting,
During the day, yeah.
right, during the day. Yeah, I think Wednesday nights with school starting involves a lot more people that gets commitments, but either the 6th or the 7th work. And I think what we're finding in our workforce, these multiple counties would really be good. And, in listening to Mr. Wetmore, we have a lot in common with these other counties that we need to at least be inclusive as much as possible.
Okay. Dwayne?
In the past, I always appreciated those area county meetings. But again, most of these folks we see again at the KLPG meeting as well, so. I'm open to either day.
A number of them we will, yes, there's no question. Dave?
Either day works, I'm pretty easy to show up for a meeting. The other counties, we've tried it two ways, just the counties that abut Finney County, and then we reached out one time and we had all the way from Syracuse in. And it's kind of good to see what's going on 2 counties away. So if you have room for them, we'll invite them.
All right. Well, with that consensus, we will, Robert and I will continue to work on this, and we'll give thought to the 6th or the 7th, and we'll get back to you quickly so you can get it on your calendars, and probably expand the number of counties at least a bit, and see if we can get some additional discussion. But as I mentioned, the 2 topics that I wanted to have on the agenda were the budget process and revenue neutral ties to that, and then the legislative things. But we can talk about, as we did the last time, some of the common things that we heard were childcare and housing in those counties as well as in Finney County, and if we want to discuss that and hear some ideas that are going on. But also, if you have other topics that you'd like to see on the agenda, and I don't look at this agenda being 10 or 12 topics, I look at the agenda being 4 or 5 topics, and having a good conversation about it. So we'll proceed with planning on that, but plan on one of those evenings being the meeting time for that. Then the other thing, we had started our conversation some time ago with regard to our goals and priorities, and we did not get through this. I just wanted to back up. I told Robert the other day, I want to take a step back and talk about format and what we're trying to accomplish here. But in doing that, I have handed to you a copy of what I took away from our last time, and I highlighted the things that we've changed and so forth. But on the first page of the document, we agreed the last time mission, vision, values, and goals would be the same, that we wouldn't change those, except for under goals, the 3rd item, we said, let's move public safety to number 1 and reprioritize those, even though we aren't saying priority 1, priority 2, but just by having it be first, it tells us that public safety is pretty darn important for our county. So that's why that's highlighted. I just simply reorganized the order based on conversation we had the other day, and that's all that was done on that first page. Then, over on the second page is where I'm talking about, do we want this same format? Do we want to talk about the immediate, ongoing, the intermediate, and long-term? Or do we want a different format? Do we want some other kind of format? And as you're thinking about that, we went through the immediate ongoing the last time we really had a in-depth conversation about this. And the things that are highlighted are ones that we said we would delete. For example, the Farmland Road is completed. But we said we wanted to advocate for and support the improvements to Highway 83. And evidently we didn't get that in the packet with, maybe I didn't get that in the packet. So I apologize for those that are watching on the screen. You're not going to have the same information that we have up here. So we had one in that first section that was deleted and another one that was added, or not added, but just reworded slightly. A couple of them down, we added a housing and infrastructure to the other two that were already on our list of childcare needs and economic development. In the expanding relationships, we talked about convening the meetings with the cities and the regional groups, but we had it as one item, and we had split that in two in our last conversation, saying this with the cities at least twice a year, and with the counties, as we've already discussed, at least once a year. And then we talked about how we needed to delete the possibility of extension offices because that project has been completed. And then in monitoring compliance, we said instead of the 2018 plan, let's just say the current plan, so that doesn't have to be, it's an ongoing thing, but it doesn't have to be rewritten. And then we added two things in our previous conversation about reviewing county subdivision regulations and reviewing code enforcement procedures. So I want to stop right there, and is this the format we want to use? If it is that all that we want to say within the immediate ongoing before we head into the intermediate and long-term? The discussion needs to be centered around the immediate ongoing for this particular time frame. So, Dave, I'll look to you since you're looking at me. And
Well, I like the format. There's not an ability to grade how we're doing there, and I at times wonder, I look at, for example, childcare. How many months ago was it that we appropriated $600,000 of ARPA funds for daycare? I go by and that building looks like it's deserted. We don't seem to get updates to know whether this is still a current item, immediate or ongoing, or what's the status. So, but otherwise, I like the lay of the land.
so I'm taking away from that, is there a way to insert or address measurement tools
Right.
for these kinds of things? So, okay, Dwayne?
I just appreciate the effort that's, the administrator put into this process, and it's a good start. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I think the concept needs to be there, and I guess in the back of my mind, quarterly, these ought to come back up. I like Dave's comment about updates. You know, where are we? What happened in the last quarter? What activities have we put forward to addressing any or all of these? Advocating for Highway 83, we can't give up on that. I think we need to fight till the last possible day to keep from getting passing lanes. If we get passing lanes, then we're finished. And, we need to stay in touch with all of the communities around us, with economic development. What's happening and what is it doing to our accounts so that our new representatives that we're gonna have going to Topeka, when they go up there, they need to have a complete toolbox to find a way to deliver that message. So I think that's real. When we get down to, that south wind sewer and water infrastructure, what does that mean? We have a sewer district out there, but it's not realistically attainable and reachable to the majority of those people. So is there something either in the infrastructure bill or something that's going to take us forward to make it more acceptable? And on water, they're their own private entity and we don't have any water systems. So why is it on here? What can we do? And I don't think we can do anything. So is it realistic to even have it on there? Infrastructure, when we get down there a little bit farther, what does that mean? Is that what we're talking about on the West Side Sewer District? Is that one, do we have a subtitle under that that says, no, we're not doing anything, or we have the study and it's in the bottom drawer, but it's still turned face up, it at least isn't over. Having it on there, does it mean anything, and what does infrastructure mean to us? So that, again, going back to Dave's comment, how do we measure? Did we do anything that's made it work? And here again, when we have this quarterly review, we'll know. I'm really, really big on convening with other partners now, but it isn't just the city and the county. I mean, we need to know what's going on at the college, the school district, the hospital, and I think at least quarterly, we need to get those, whether it's the key executives of each one of those organizations. We got a brand new superintendent of schools. We haven't had an opportunity to meet him, but fortunately I have, and I am really excited about what he can do and what his attitude is toward education and giving students an opportunity to be available for jobs in Finney County and in the western part of the state. And we need to get to know all of these people, and they need to know what we're doing, and we need to know what they're doing. And I think whether it's the chairman and the administrators, but at least quarterly, of all of those entities, college, hospital, et cetera, our hospital CEO is gone, we're gonna have a different one. And boy, it'd be nice to get to know one while they're kind of passing through, so we know what to expect from that entity. But to me, that's very, very important. Chamber, Convention and Visitors Bureau, Economic Development, everybody that has a hand in doing what we do in Finney County needs to be on the same page. They may not all agree, but at least they need to know what the happenings are. So I guess that's what I would throw out there for now.
Okay, all right, Larry?
The format's fine with me, and I think we just need to, I really like Dave's idea of some scoring system. This is at 10% done, this is at 20% done, or where are we?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, one last thing, and it's on the code enforcement. And Linda mentioned it here not so long ago, where we need to go through the codes and the zoning and stuff like that. We sat here meeting after meeting after meeting and make variances, and we make exceptions, and we make new rules, because a lot of the rules we have are so ridiculous that it doesn't make sense. And I think, again, we ought to try to sit down, as we are a partner in that deal, and say, all right, our goal for 2023, or the first 6 months of 2023, or something in a timeline, this needs to get handled. And we need to start, or we'll never get finished.
Okay. Valid comments? I'm just making a couple of notes to myself here. So I've heard, and again, I'm focused on the immediate ongoing thing, and I'm focused on the comments that I've heard with regard to a scoring system, or measurement tools is the phrase I'd written down, quarterly updates, and what progress, or again, progress reports, maybe is another word. And then I've also heard, do we need to, in that third bullet point under immediate ongoing, we've stated with community partners, sustain and strengthen the economy and our quality of life. And we've said, we've added housing and infrastructure. We've got childcare and economic development, that's been in there for some time. But do we want to be any more specific than that? Bob asked the question under infrastructure, do we want to have some subgroups under that? Or do we want to just simply be that broad to cover anything we might not even know about today? And for example, under the housing, and I know I'm jumping back and forth, under the housing, there was reference to a North Jenny Barker housing thing in our last conversation, but that doesn't mean that Sunset Terrace, even though it's annexed into the city, isn't something we need to be working on, which we have as a county. We've worked with a sewer development agreement, a sewer system development agreement, and so forth. So my question is this: do we want to leave it broad to cover things that might be ongoing, things we don't even anticipate yet, or do we want to be more specific under the headings of housing, infrastructure, childcare, and so forth and so on?
Well, the only problem is when we leave it real broad like that, we don't score we won't measure the progress of individual projects.
It's a good point.
And so I think you need to some way identify, here's where we're going, and these are the ones we're working on, but we're always open to new projects. But I mean, some way you can identify, just say infrastructure. Yeah, well, everybody's in favor of infrastructure.
Okay, so identification for the scoring piece of it, yeah, okay, all right. So that's a fair statement, or a reasonable statement, yeah, okay.
Where were you putting Bob's comment about the planning and zoning review? With sticking that under, is that what you're considering with the review county subdivision regulations, or?
I'd have to go back to Bob and
Yeah, I think kind of in that last bullet point there, where we're speaking about that, I think you make that an individual topic, Dwayne, under that says, hey, let's start on this. You know, they complain about it as much as we do.
So you want to add a third? I agree.
I think it needs to be a bullet point, because then it becomes measurable, going back to Larry's comment.
so I guess I'm needing some clarification. I'm not arguing against it, but what would be the bullet point that we're asking for? And before we go there, Linda?
Yeah, no, I just want to interject. So just so everyone's aware, subdivision regulations and the code are two different topics, okay? So if we want to address zoning, that's separate from addressing subdivision regulations, but they are certainly related to each other. And so if you want to address both of those, they might need to be listed. I mean, you can list them on the same item, but I think you need to say both. If you want
A third bullet point under that.
either a third bullet point or subdivision regulations and zoning, however you want to phrase it, but they are two separate items or documents.
So whether it's included in the first bullet or made separate, the terminology we're talking about is zoning? Is that right?
No, zoning and subdivision regulations. Those are
Well,
two.
no, I meant
Is that what
in
you mean?
addition to what we have here.
Yes,
Either as
yeah,
a-
I'm sorry,
either
I
as a
apologize.
separate bullet or we're talking about zoning is what's missing. Is that what everybody's saying? I'm just trying to follow, make sure. So,
You know, the code is what we needed to update it in.
Correct. However you want to word that,
Be the starting point.
code, zoning codes, or whatever you want to word
okay,
that.
okay, now I'm better following you. Okay.
But yet, when we
But
had
as a
our
third bullet point.
when we had our common meeting with them, Trent was explaining that they have adopted new codes and stuff like that, which help a lot. But we do have this subdivision that goes back to, I guess, 1995, when the sweeping changes were made and everything was drawn in and said, this is the particular subdivision, et cetera. And we just need to make sure that all of those rules and regulations are realistic and livable and workable.
Which brings to a point, they're adopting these, like you said, but are we approving those adoptions?
Well, it seems like what we're doing right now is approving exceptions all the time instead of starting over and building a new set of rules that are applicable to today's standards that we're actually living. So I think we look to them for direction, and they look back on their records of what we've been waiving and see if we can find some kind of a standard that becomes realistic.
Well, and I would just simply add, I've always been spoken this way in anything. If the exceptions start out numbering the rules, then we need to take a look and see what needs to be changed. So I think it's in the same, we're talking about all that stuff in the same spirit. So, okay, well, we'll work on that, so forth. Anything else on the immediate ongoing? And we'll bring it back to you with what I'm hearing here and let you digest it and talk about it again.
One final thing on infrastructure. You know, we have that study on the West Side Sewer District, and we have a developer who wants to work. And if we're not going to go forward with that West Side Sewer District, don't we owe it to that developer to say so?
Where are you getting the impression we're not gonna go forward with it?
We haven't done anything on it since we received the study and put it in the drawer.
Well, we got turned down.
We got turned down for the funding.
And we asked for one particular grant and we didn't get it, and nothing's happened thereafter. So, you know, it hasn't shown up on any capital improvement program. It hasn't shown up in a budget,
That's the scoring I'm talking about.
okay? But if it doesn't show up on this document, then it kind of gets lost.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Okay. All right. Noted.
Lon, may I make a quick point that
Yep, this is open discussion on that.
no one else may agree with, but
Board governance.
years ago, we had, before 1995, no zoning, and then in 1995, we got the sweeping countywide zoning, which I think copied some metropolitan county in the Kansas City area. And then we came up for a while with some 3-mile regulations. Things within 3 miles of the city limits were treated a little differently than that away out. Then we did away with that, and our comprehensive plan went to an envelope. But we still have the same rules for the person, as often is cited, lives 10 miles north of Calvesta, as a person who lives 10 feet across the highway that separates the city from the county. And at some point, I still maintain we need to take a look and see if that 3-mile concept isn't appropriate for these, particularly people wanting to build a shed that's bigger than their house or their whatever, and their nearest neighbor is about a mile away or whatever. Why do we have so many folks coming in for waivers when the sign over at neighborhood development ought to be, how do we get it built? And so that, to me, needs to be addressed at some point. Is our zoning, the countywide zoning, is that appropriate or is it not? So, said my piece, nobody else may agree with me, but
I would agree.
Any other comments? And again, we'll wordsmith this stuff and get it back to you for feedback and input on immediate and ongoing. Because I'm taking that the format is okay, 3 different sections and so forth. So if
You don't have anything down here about our new EMS station? Fire, I mean, not the fire, but the EMS county health.
under intermediate we do. Should we, you want to move that up to immediate? I mean, no, well, no, I'm not arguing the point, but we hadn't been into the intermediate yet. And yes, there are some things in intermediate that may in fact move to immediate ongoing. So I would not argue with that point at all, that that one needs to be moved to the immediate. Well, we aren't yet, but we will be, yeah. I mean, we're collecting, but we won't see it until September, is what I should say. But do you want to move that, develop the comprehensive plans to meet the needs of the county health and EMS to the immediate ongoing? Is that consensus?
It's getting close.
Okay, all right, we'll get that up in that first category. The one thing that we haven't been real diligent about is the quarterly board governance self-evaluation. We've tried to do some of that, but we haven't been real diligent about it. But I think we need to keep that on there as a reminder. The one I highlighted that we deleting is the Jenny Barker Road urbanization has been completed except for the signaling, and those, it's my understanding, have been ordered but not delivered. So I was suggesting we delete that. It was mentioned in our last conversation about a Mansfield Road project, but I just had Mansfield Road written down.
Mansfield Road is closed for whatever reason.
Well, part of it is. Part of it is. Yeah. Yeah, you
Well, I
can't
think
get-
from Jenny Barker back west.
You can't get to the pond from there and stuff.
But I think, long-term, when you look at the development that's happening there between Jerry Meese's deal, Meese Trucking, and all of the stuff that's on the north side of the tracks, that Mansfield Road potential could be very, very advantageous to the county. And so I think realistically, as tough as that job's gonna be, we need to be looking at it so that we have some idea what that battle is.
So address Mansfield Road issues or whatever? Something to that effect?
What else are you guys gonna build out there?
That brings up a point. I was informed that because of the farmland road construction, a lot of the heavy semi-traffic went Mansfield and ended up and pretty much destroyed that Blacktop Road that they use. So that's gonna have to move up on our priority list because a lot of damage was done to that road during the farmland construction.
I think you're correct on that. But we've got, and now the Mansfield Road thing, though, well, yeah, I guess that'd still fit under the sales tax revenue. I was thinking about the headings and the categories we have here in intermediate.
Let's talk a little bit about sales tax revenue. Is that the only source of revenue that can be considered for these kind of projects? Or should this general topic be capital improvement projects that, we need to look funding, be it bonds or whatever else, that there might be alternatives?
That's open for discussion.
Well, whether you go to the voters for sales tax of some sort, and I think we're maxed at sales tax, are we not?
Pretty close.
And I think what it does, it really highlights how important and what is a priority of whatever the next projects are. Because the sales tax that we're doing jointly, like for the fire station, if you will, for the next one, it's locked out for quite a long period of time, is it not? And then the other monies that we have coming in from sales tax has really been kind of focused on the health department is the next piece. And then somewhere down the line, you're still talking law enforcement HVAC system? And is there any, I mean, are those projects ahead of these? Are they in this same category? How to, you know, that health department didn't show up here like you mentioned. Is it in this block? And do we need to put these in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 priority order so that when we visit them quarterly, we say, wait a minute, we have to shuffle because now we're ready to go with the EMS and health department? Or all of a sudden, one of these others have surfaced as a more critical shifting? But I think we ought to look at these, if these are still real items that we need, which one is the most important?
Robert, I'm going to look at Robert. I mean, I want this to be board discussion, but input from our administrator, funding sources and priorities, and some of the things that Bob has raised with his comments. Your feedback, please.
We do have a sales tax that is partially paying some debt on a current lease, if you will, purchase. That, if you recall, probably the first budget that I did here is that sales tax actually runs out prior to that debt being paid off, so you'll have to go through the process of renewing that one. And I don't have the particulars on it at this point in time, but I think probably a good tool for you to have is to specifically identify your sales tax and what they're going for, what they're going currently plan to be paying off, and then try and craft your capital want list off of what may be available, and look at those and whether you want to issue debt financing, and keep in mind that that cost is starting to inch up, but it's still pretty reasonable at this point in time if you want to do that. You do have some upcoming needs, as was pointed out, with your HVAC system across the street, which is something that we need to begin moving forward on. But once again, a specific source has not been identified as terms of revenue. So once you get to a point of prioritizing those lists, we can figure out a financial scheme that we can start to chip away at that listing, if you will, to make those things happen.
And keep in mind that, just jumping forward just for a second, that one of the items we have under long-term is to expand sources of non-property tax revenue. And here we're talking about sales tax, but we also have talked about, or the reference to bonding has been made and so forth, which would be back to the property tax unless it was a revenue bond of some sort, but tied to sales tax. So, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, prioritization, and then look at the funding sources that are available. But keeping in mind what our long-term objective is.
Sure, absolutely, because some of your projects may be subject to some grants that may be available out there.
That's a good
And
point, too.
it's just waiting for those opportunities as they arise and monitoring them.
Yeah, good point. So in the intermediate, in addition to maybe prioritizing, identifying some funding sources, what other comments do you have? And then first, we talked about moving the health and EMS to the immediate and ongoing. What other comments in that intermediate area?
I'd like to speak a little bit to Bob's comment. I'd like to keep these wish list items more under a sales tax. I don't want to see those wish lists moved to property tax. I think that needs to be reserved for, we've got to do this now kind of stuff. Where the wish list, I don't think that should come out of property tax. I think if we could use sales tax or grants That's the way we ought to go with that one.
Okay. All right. What other comments? If not, any other comments on intermediate, then the long term, because I had left the print size the same, but I had added 2 or 3 lines, went to another page, and you can see the 3 bullet points that we have with regard to that. The second one I'll jump to right away is I've referenced it this morning, and we've got the RFP that's probably going to move forward. I haven't heard objection to moving that forward, so I didn't know if we wanted to reword that rather than just referencing convention space, revenue generating space, or facilities that could be used to help Finney County become more of a destination of choice, or I'm just brainstorming here a little bit. So, in the long-term area, you see 3 bullet points. Any that need to be added, any that need to be changed. And again, just free flow discussion.
I'll move to keep it like it is. I think if we're in a battle for figuring out how in the world to fund the intermediate, I don't know how in the world we ever get to the long term, so. I think it's great to have a direction, and I think that's about what that amounts to.
Well, my only thought, and this is not excluding Dwayne or Larry from commenting, but my only thought in the long term is I think we need to be more comprehensive than just convention center facilities. That's just me. When I convened this group, I used convention/conference/trade show space, but that doesn't even take into account the hotels and what we might need from a hotel standpoint. Doesn't take into account fields such as soccer fields and so forth, even in the terminology I used to convene that group together. So I think I was somewhat limiting in my topic when I asked the group to get together. So I think making Finney County a destination of choice is good. I like that wording, but maybe we need to be more comprehensive with what we mean.
Well, when you leave it as destination of choice, you leave the door wide open for lots of suggestions.
And maybe,
so if that's what you want.
and maybe that's what we need to do, is just go back to that main bullet point, yeah.
Well, and I believe if you get this quarterly meeting between all of the entities going to where everybody comes to the table ready to share about what's going to be great about Finney County, good things will happen. And everybody will start pulling in the same direction. And until that happens, we don't have a chance.
The other thing I'll just throw on the table for discussion purposes, when we were having this task force, when we were having our meetings with this task force, one of the phrases that came about was being a regional draw. And we did not use that phrase today, because once we said that, well, don't we want to draw more than just from the region? And so, you know, words do matter, terminology does matter as far as what perception there might be with regard to these things. That's why destination of choice, whether it be to come and live here or whether it be to come and visit here, it kind of rings true to me.
The only thing that bothers me about saying we're a regional draw is that then we're promoting ourselves over all our neighbors. And a lot of people that live outside of the area will take exceptions to that.
Yeah. And I can't argue with that either. So we were talking that way in a meeting, but we got him.
Attaboy, Larry.
That horse guy can get those flies.
I've been wanting to do that for 10 minutes.
Well, he was
Yeah,
right
but
here, so.
he does that while he's riding a horse too, so, yeah. So maybe wordsmith that second bullet a little bit, or take out the sub-bullet, or anything else that you think we need to do with the long-term future. I'm not hearing or seeing any, so what we will do to conclude this discussion today is I will take these back. I'll talk to Robert a little bit about, some of the things we've discussed with regard to funding and priorities and kind of see where we are. We'll come back to you with either next meeting or the meeting after with a revised statement. And so look for more highlights and stuff on the document. Thank you for the participation. Dory is still not completed, it looks like, so we're going to continue on with the reports. And first will be the staff reports. And I think, Paul, you had something that we need to know about, and a particular meeting that might be planned that could change one of our September meeting dates. Paul, if you would come forward and talk about that.
Well, on September the 19th, airport, we're going to have a live exercise. We're going to close the airport down for 2 hours out there and get everybody involved that needs to be involved. But working with Chief Ersick from the fire department and the other law enforcement agencies, we thought it'd be a good time at some point to open the Emergency Operations Center up to see how it's working. It involves a lot of folks, involves all you guys in here, city and city commission as well. We have been working to update the Emergency Operations Center. I've got our IT department's getting us phones set back up over there. We're getting computers brought back in so we can use all the disciplines and the emergency support functions. So we're trying to get this set, and what we're working towards is to kind of run it with the September 19th exercise that we are having at the airport, even though it wouldn't involve all the emergency functions under the 10-15 that's underneath the disciplines of the emergency support group. We are looking at maybe running some other feature with that to where we can operate everybody the same. But we're trying to we have to have the local emergency planning commission involved. There's a lot of number of people in here, and the only time we really come up with was to run it here September the 19th. And I wasn't even thinking that was a commission meeting, so that's kind of where we were at, so.
And we're talking about the morning of September.
It would run from 8 to noon. The exercise at the airport is gonna start at 9 to 11, but what we're kind of envisioning through the other departments is from 8 to noon, kind of an 8 to 8:30 kickoff meeting, and then 8:30 to 9, get everything ready, and then from 9 to 11 or 11:30, run the exercise, and then from 11 or 11:30 to noon, kind of a recap. So it's kind of where we're looking at.
Paul, is your exercise functional, or is it a full scale? What?
The one for the EOC, we're still in the talking stages of that. I would like to see more of a functional, that I don't want to have to come up with. I would like to see the people that are involved, let's say transportation or something like that, I'd like to see them reach out to a number of people to see the resources. Because I've been working on that to get that all brought back up. I've been working with our dispatch and fire over there to get all of our community resources and outlying resources brought back. But I'd like, just speaking with these other folks, we're trying to see how many of these other folks has got the capability of reaching out. We know we're not going to be perfect. We know we're going to have some setbacks, but we want to do it now before it actually happens. So that's kind of where we're at.
I'll throw you a suggestion. Put a skip time in there. Have an exercise, and all of a sudden it's 24 hours later, and so this crew, you need to be replaced. And then that tests your system.
Well, and that we have talked about that, and
got a couple meetings scheduled with a couple of my counterparts that's been through this quite a bit, so in fact, one of them's getting ready to do that, I believe, at the end of this month. So I'm kind of leaning on them. I've got a couple counterparts that are going to come in and evaluate us out at the airport and here as well. So we're still we're all brand new in this game. All the powers to be, as far as the fire and city and the sheriff's office, we're all kind of a new group. So, and to go along with that, there may be some of our county directors that may need to be in here as far as meeting with the commission that would be heavily involved in this emergency operation function. So, you know, trying to get everybody, county clerk being one of them and some of her counterparts. And so we need to, you know, if we can't do it that day, we've got alternatives that we can do it, so. But we were just kind of wanting to run it all together, so.
Yeah, and I see the benefit of being able to do it all together. And Robert, I'm going to surprise Robert with this one because it just occurred to me a few minutes ago, so I haven't had time to consult. But Robert had alerted me to this possibility on the 19th of September. Robert and I talked about moving our meeting to Tuesday the 20th. However, the thought just occurred to me, if this is going to be concluded at noon on the 19th, how about if we did an afternoon commission meeting, or the possibility of an afternoon meeting on the 19th, since we should have that date blocked on our calendars already. But we, if not all, need, some of us, if not all, need to be involved in this stuff with Paul on the morning of the 19th. So my question to the fellow commissioners, we need to probably change our September 19th meeting. Would you prefer the afternoon of September 19th or the morning of the 20th?
Afternoon.
Afternoon the 19th?
And I'm going to advocate a little bit for Paul. Having experienced what he's experiencing, it's doubly difficult to try to get the county commission involved. And by federal guidelines, we have a duty. And if they fire up the EOC to the level that I'm anticipating he's going to shoot for, if that was a real thing, we would want to be there. And I'll recite an actual event. September 11, 2001, we had a position in the EOC called finance person from the county commission to okay immediate expenses, and we've had reluctance to get a commissioner there, and then the next thing I know, because that had received a good deal of publicity, all of the airplanes landing here, we had a room full of county commissioners, and now that creates a problem because of open meetings. And so Paul's got to dance a fancy dance to get you there, but he's got to involve the press too if you're going to have a majority of a quorum. So.
Exactly, and the thing is that, and you're exactly right, but under the emergency operation plan, Finney County's emergency operation plan, it states in there that we shall have the chairman of the county commission and at least a couple of commissioners there. So, I mean, there's some rules that's been adopted by the state that we have to play by. And in order to make this function, you know, there's 15 disciplines underneath the ESF function. Plus there's the joint command, there's all this that goes along with it. And right now, we've been having weekly meetings with fire and everybody that's kind of been involved, and I think we're getting ready to send out some more invites after the meeting tomorrow to maybe include the chairman and maybe the mayor from the city, so we can kind of get a little more. Matt Allen and Robert Reese will be included in all this, so we're working to try to get this operational, and we've kind of got thrown by the 8 ball because the phone systems over here we have some that's run by our IT department, some run by the SO IT department over there, so we're trying to get everything working together, plus having enough resources, enough computers for everybody to use, so. I think we've got some of it solved, but we're working pretty hard to get all of it solved, so.
Appreciate it, Paul. So we know that on the morning of September 19th, we have a training exercise, if you will. What is the board's pleasure as far as our meeting time, that afternoon or the next morning?
I'll vote for that afternoon.
I'm actually out of town both days, so I can't help.
Doesn't matter, just let me know when.
Let's go with the afternoon of September 19, and probably be about 1:30, I would say, for our meeting. So.
Gabby, you have that?
All righty. Well, thank you a lot, sir.
Thank you, Paul. You have Robert, you have eye contact with Gabby, I do not, so.
We move from 8:30 to 1:30?
8:30 to 1:30 for the meeting, but we'll be asked to be a part of the morning stuff as well, so. Okay, so that meeting will be the afternoon of the 19th, okay. Let's head into the other staff reports, starting with our administrator.
All righty, over the last couple of weeks, went to the Government Affairs Committee meeting, participating in that process at the Chamber. Additionally, working with Jenny on various things, such as your budget presentation for today that you went through. Hopefully you found that a little bit more informative than perhaps in the past in that process. We'll also begin that, do the same process for our public hearing meeting for the budget on the 6th of September. Working on getting a presentation moving forward on that as well. Of course, you've had some updates from in your executive session, which I've been involved in with that as well. And then coming up this week, over actually the next couple of weeks, a few development meetings with RHID processes, and appears like we then have renewal meeting coming up on insurance on the 18th. That I know that one or two of you are participating in.
Larry and I will be there.
And I think you'll see some potential presentation on a third option for consideration on your insurance, which is a high deductible option, which may be more appealing to perhaps some of the younger employees. So that's the 18th.
Questions to Robert? Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Robert, can you explain why the $600,000 check for the daycare services didn't go out until last month?
A signed agreement. It was based upon getting an agreement signed, and then it went through the clerk's processes.
Okay, are we cleaned up now so that they can move along and?
Yep, whatever decision they make, yes.
So, okay.
Any other questions to Robert? Not, Linda, what updates might you have?
Well, I was out of the office last week for vacation, so I don't have a lot. I do know we have a couple of RHID projects that are in line this week. For me to do some work with regard to development agreement. And then also we're having a meeting with regard to Country Acres coming up. Of course, the tax sale is still, that issue is still ongoing. Nothing's been filed with the court at this point. We're still doing the process through the title company. So I think that's all
That was going to be my question, was tax sale. So we're still going through the title issues and so forth.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Any questions to Linda with regard to county council? All right. And let's see. Well, we have upcoming meetings and so forth, and the mid-year report on the, is that, where is that? There is a meeting with regard to the KNRC, the organization that we paid a fee to. Is it, I'm trying to remember if that fee, or if that meeting date was referenced in that handout. It's been too long since I've seen it. But there was a December date that Dory called my attention to. Is that in that?
Yeah, I'm about to find it here for you.
Oh, yeah, annual meeting is December 1 and 2, and I've been told that that's in Dodge City. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I couldn't remember if it was at the end of that. So tentatively, mark December 1 and 2. I don't know what the time frame is, but it's in Dodge. So I just wanted to call your attention to that, even though it's a written report in your packet. And then the other thing, as far as meetings and so forth, I referenced it earlier. You should have all received the KLPG annual meeting notice for September 15th, which is an evening, and then the morning, well, actually, 2/3 of the day on the 16th. But it's, the meeting, once again, is in Garden City, so should be convenient and no travel. But make sure we have that on your calendar as well. With that, let's head into the commissioner reports. And Larry, do you want to start us off?
I don't know about you guys, but I got numerous phone calls on the revenue neutral statements that went out to everybody in the mail. How do you read this thing? What's this mean? So I hope I'm not the only victim of that.
You're not.
You're not.
You're not.
And so, yeah, it was interesting to say the least. And I'm not an expert by any means by reading that form. It took me a while to kind of, because I kind of knew a little of the background, but trying to decipher it, it still wasn't easy. Also attended the sales tax committee meeting for you, Lon, and we need to, I think, it appears to me that we need to make sure and put our request in for monies to equip our EMS station in the fire station. And I know we spoke about that afterwards, and I think we need to get on their agenda here pretty soon because we need fiber connection. Also, I don't think it'd be out of place to say we also may need to look at an additional ambulance or a new ambulance, because this is all coming out of the sales tax revenue. And now would be the time to make those wishes or requests available. Because after it's over, it's too late.
Skylar's working on a presentation for the fiber connection, he and Doug.
Okay.
In
Okay.
IT. So that'll happen for sure, and if we want to get together with Skylar on another unit.
I would highly suggest another unit, because now's the time to do it, if you want to do it.
Okay.
Or update your existing units.
Okay.
And on that, right now, the fire station portion of that, they have operational money and vehicle money coming out of the sales tax deal for a period of time or in perpetuity.
Period of time.
Till it's,
Yeah, I think.
Till the end of that sales tax deal?
Correct. Uh-huh.
That's what kind of perked my interest, when they start talking about all the things they're gonna pull out of it, I thought, me too.
Well, this was a good example where it's nice to change people up because Larry gave a fresh set of eyes and ears. I had maybe gotten a little bit complacent on that committee. However, the most important thing that we had been tackling prior to this meeting was the shooting range and completion of and so forth. And I had lost sight a little bit on the fire station. So I truly appreciated Larry being there and observing some of the things that maybe we need to
Well, I asked him
request in the future.
a few questions on the shooting range. I don't, because I'm not interested in it but I thought if somebody bought a handgun and said, how do I operate this thing? If they went to the shooting range, was there somebody available to?
I might address that. Sand and Sage has especially a course for the ladies, and they have 2 ladies that will be doing those trainings. So
Okay, good.
I do not have a contact information off the top of my head, but there is a program for the ladies to
Because
train and safely
I asked
operate.
them and everybody was kind of, well, they're doing it, we're doing it. Nobody seemed to really want to step up and say, yeah, this is available.
Sand and Sage is stepping up on that.
And Sand and Sage is a great partner in that gun range, and they even have their own space out there at the range and so forth. So I expect more things from Sand and Sage going forward based on what I've been shown.
Other than that, that concludes my report.
All right. Bob?
We had a very productive meeting with Compass. They've had a year of changing over to electronic medical records. It's been a long, arduous process, but it's working very well. Met with the extension group last Monday night at their meeting. Everybody was talking about the success of their fairs, and seems to be a little bit of a who does what in terms of fair boards and extension service. Where does the responsibility stop? And so that's going to kind of be a focus this next year before fair season starts, to try to get an understanding of the responsibilities between those groups. Beyond that, that should be it, I guess.
Dave?
I don't have much to report. National Night Out. You folks would have been proud of our library. They hosted a National Night Out site. Tyson donated, I don't know how many pounds of hamburger, and the natural gas company, not Peoples.
Black Hills.
Black Hills, there we go. Black Hills sent over their crew to cook, and they had all kinds of games and things set up, and fire folks, law enforcement folks, emergency medical folks, all there for the kids to respond to. And so Pam and that crew run a community recognized operation, and they need to be praised a little for that. Incidentally, the library board meeting is tonight at 5 o'clock if anybody's interested. Along that line, I had made a comment before this body about the voters' responsibility of up to 1.9 mils to support the library, and at times that fell short of what LS&S had in their contract. Apparently I worried LS&S a little because I had a call from their management wanting to discuss their budget, and I said this year it looks like they're in pretty good shape because the mill levy went up enough that their budget request was honored, and until our hearing date, it looks good. We could change at that point. So they agreed to come out and have negotiations over the renewal of contracts. That was good. My final thing is, like Larry had a number of calls, but probably most succinctly summed up by Harold and Connie Mai, who have a number of properties, and so they had a number of notices, and Connie saying, I don't know how you tie any notice to any piece of property because the property number was not there for everything. So I don't know if there's a way to clear that up for the next go-around. Should we go through this again where that land or that parcel owner knows, okay, this notice is for this parcel. She thought that was important. And I said, no, all they're doing is notifying you that we intend to exceed revenue neutral, and there's a hearing, and you're invited to come to that hearing and then state your position if you're opposed to the raise in budgeted money. So that's it. That letter did cause a lot of confusion.
When you get them in manila envelopes, 2 of them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're going.
Yeah, that was what Connie said.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out how it all tied together. So anyway, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
To follow up with that revenue neutral, my complaint was, who is paying for this? I told them the state, this year.
2 years.
2 years, okay.
This year and
Anyway,
next. Well, they promised to do that.
okay.
Was my microphone still on? I'm sorry.
To follow up with on the Sands and Sage discussion, if anybody, those ladies who are conducting that are range certified, they're certified range instructors, and if anybody wants to get involved, they can get on Sand and Sage website, and they can get the times and dates. Sand and Sage now is meeting their monthly meetings at that range instead of the Eagles as they have forever. Lona will probably have to help me on this a little bit. I attended their last meeting. I did not report on it. They've had some RHIDs been approved. She was all excited about that by State Commerce. And Shannon has done another one of his surveys. Great response. I assume next meeting he will present that, and
We're actually hopeful that he'll have it ready for the 5th week meeting.
okay.
We have a 5th week meeting this month, so we have a meeting this afternoon to determine.
If it's as good a survey or presentation, I'm probably going to request that he gives it to us as well. So,
It's gonna be amazing.
okay.
So it'll probably be at your 5th week meeting.
I will encourage that to get on our agenda, because Shannon's surveys are usually really good. Fair Board, a lot of discussion. Some of the rules that are being complained about the most come straight out of the State Fair book. So if there's going to be some tweaking, we're going to have to be careful, because these are the same rules that are in the State Fair book. There's been discussion about maybe a code of conduct policy being developed, because there's never been one for both supervisors and fair boards, and so that will probably be in the works. We have 5 more people interested in joining the fair board. The goal is to get up to 25 members. I think that's a very optimistic goal, because when I started coming to this meeting, we had like 5 fair board members. So great progress on that. There was some debate about maybe fair board members not being supervisors at the fair, but that poses a great problem, because most of the fair board members are supervisors because they can't find supervisors. So I guess the long story short, public, if you're interested in our fair, we need some people to step up, both as supervisors and as fair board members. Without supervisors, the fair is going to die. I mean, you just got to have them. So 4-Hers, parents, put that under your bonnet, because we need people to step up. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the time you and the Fair Board people put into the fair this year, and I know there was an inordinate amount of hours and time by everyone, including yourself, so thank you for that. Just a couple of things. I've already mentioned the KLPG annual meeting coming up, and a couple of things that I've done. Some of it's just been with this task force and the RFP that we discussed at length earlier in the meeting. I was invited to be a part of the pre-construction meeting for the Western Corridor project, and Robert and myself and Curtis, can't think if there, Linda was there, and I don't know if there was anybody else from the county, but we had 2 or 3 people, and then neighborhood development and economic development, a few others were represented at that meeting. And just a quick side note, it was in the meeting room out at the airport, so that was kind of interesting to be able to see some of the demolition and the construction stuff that's going on out there that Matt alluded to earlier. Lastly, there's a conservation tour that Senator Moran is putting together, and Dwayne has agreed to try to participate in that on August 22nd. But I think it's important for us as a county to participate in things like this, especially when we're talking about the aquifer and conservation practices and so forth in our area. And Robert's already alluded to it, but just a reminder, on September 6th at our board meeting, that will be our budget hearing and our revenue neutral hearing date, not only for our general county budget, but also the remaining sewer district as well. And then on that statement that you received, and I'll finish my comments with this, on that statement you received, at least listed all the hearing dates. I'm going to go try to sit in on a couple of those just to observe, not to make comments, but for example, the Extension District, the Community College, a couple of those that we have an interest in. And also, we have property over in Gray County, and I'm going to try to go sit in on theirs as well, just to observe and see what the comments are and what kind of feedback and so forth. And lastly, to those statements, Larry, I'll mention that ours, even though I agree, people were complaining about the description being on that upper right-hand corner, but it was better than Gray County's, where they put "not a bill" and stamped it with dark black ink right across some of the numbers that you want to see. And when we looked at all those, were things, and it took a magnifying glass and light to see through that black. Same form. Then our Johnson County forms, because we have some property in Johnson County, came where they must have used bigger print, and the bottom part with the hearings and stuff was on a separate page. And we almost missed that piece of it, but so it was the same format, but evidently a larger print that didn't get it on the sheet.
Did every county issue one of those things, or just the ones that exceeded the revenue neutral?
Yeah, anybody received that exceeded.
Anybody being revenue neutral, but I'll just guess.
Well, Reno County was trying to be, but I don't know what their final resolve was, because it was going to be $1.3 million reduction in their budget if they hit revenue neutral. So I doubt if they hit it, but they were talking about trying to hit it. They had one commissioner that wanted them to be that way. But anyhow, enough of those comments. So, yeah,
Question
Dave.
for you, on our sent out upcoming meetings and events, the KLPG in Garden City is not on there.
Oversight, yeah, it should be.
And I have that,
It's evening of the 15th and 2/3 and
15 and
2/3 of the day on the 16th. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it
Actually, just go to their website and it'll have.
it should be on those meetings, upcoming meetings, and that's just an oversight on our part.
all right,
Gabby, do we know what the status is in the? Okay, all right. So we'll just take a quick break and we'll reconvene as Board of Canvassers when Dory enters the room here in just a little bit. Thank you.
On the KLPG, do
as a Board of Canvassers, and you are on.
All right. So I wanted to go through, and I will hand out these to you. I only did one report with write-ins because it's 143 pages. So you guys can look at that and pass it down. If you want one, I can send it to you electronically. But there was nothing, none of the county races or anything, there wasn't enough. The only township that we had a write-in for would have been Terry Township, and no one there got enough votes write-in for the nomination on the general ballot, so the general ballot will be a write-in for Terry Township. For township, it takes 3. For precinct committee person, it takes 5, and that's because they're actually being elected in August and not nominated. That's the difference. And then for any county office, I believe it's 5% of registered voters within the district. So, all right. All right, so on election night, on the election night report, we gave you totals, of course, for all of the ballots that were counted as of that night. Since then, on August 3rd, we added 43 mail ballots for a total of 6,898 votes cast. On August 4th, we did not have any additional ballots received, so there was no change on August 4th. On August 5th, we did our hand count board, and we had 7 ballots hand counted. We added 1 to election day totals for a total of 5,491, 5 to the absentee for a total of 289, and 1 to the early totals for a total of 1,125. Today, you authorized us to count 146 additional ballots, and those were all provisional, so those have been added onto the election day totals. And that gives us a total votes cast in Finney County of 7,051. So on August 8th, we conducted our county audit as prescribed by the Secretary of State. We always have to audit one federal, one national, one state, one county office. And then this year, we also added the constitutional amendment. And we also audited a state legislative race. That audit was conducted on the 8th. We submitted our results to the Secretary of State. They approved that audit on the 10th. So the audit has been approved. I do have the audit materials if you would like to review them. And then, of course, if you're interested in any tapes or other election materials, we would be happy to retrieve those for you.
Last time I tied. So my history's not been good. No. Just a short career.
One vote.
Yeah, that's every vote.
That just shows the importance that one vote
Every
makes.
does matter.
Every vote does matter, so.
Well, wasn't that was that Cherokee County also that was a county commissioner vote that
It was pretty close. I'm not sure how close it was, but it was.
1 or 2 votes? County commission race over there as well. I know, that's. Yeah, he got him out to vote over there. It must've been those signs he put up or something. You know, that thought has been in my mind for a couple of weeks now, because I think that was referenced 4 years ago. So, you mentioned the Terry, was it Terry Township?
Yes, and that will be in the write-in report.
But my point is, that was the only township that we didn't have someone win the election August 2nd?
Win the nomination, yes.
Nomination.
Yeah, they actually all came in and filed for office. Terry was the only one that we didn't have a candidate file for. And so that was left up strictly to write-in. Write-ins aren't included on the ballot when a candidate, on a primary ballot, when there is a candidate, so.
And then on the precinct people, that, you know, people had their names on the ballot, but were there, and without going through the 143 pages, were there some write-ins that did win precinct positions in August 2nd?
Not in my, I haven't had a lot of time to dig in and look at it since we just finished these results, but I did skim through them, and I didn't see any that got the required 5. But certainly there would be some names on there for people who may be interested.
Right,
So.
right. But probably, if they weren't already named on the ballot, there probably wasn't enough vote
Yeah.
total for, yeah.
There was a lot of, I think there were, several votes, but just not enough for the same person, so.
5 now.
Yep, and we will be forwarding the precinct results to each of the party chairs.
Right, yeah, good point.
Today's count, the provisionals, how did the state treasurer's race go on the Republican side? Did one gain more than, I'm not quite interpreting this.
It's about the same, I was thinking. Oh, no, I'm thinking about Secretary of State. No.
So Republican State Treasurer,
You're asking if that changed much with the provisionals? Is that what you're asking?
Because Steve Johnson was ahead about 400 votes going into today. And I just,
so State Treasurer,
Is that on our form, or is that?
well, I'm trying to figure
Well, just for our county.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Just for our county.
yeah, just for this county. So on election day, Steve Johnson had 2261, Karen Tyson 1605. And you can compare that to today's totals of Johnson 2318 and Tyson 1631. So they each did pick some up.
reading though in your report here is that Steve Johnson got 42 votes today and Karen Tyson 20.
Looks about right.
The provisional, yeah.
I don't math fast, but I'm no Robert.
I was looking at something else, one concentrating, you said something about the precinct chairman and chairwoman. When do we find out the results of that?
So they are in the write-out report that you guys can pass around. That's that 143 pager. We will be sending the precinct results to the chairs of each committee. For anybody that,
Right. Yeah.
you were quite a bit ahead, I think, so I would have to look in the,
Yeah, I knew that's why you were interested, but right here with Dwayne.
Flipping through it right up to see it.
I know you
So-
guys were waiting on us though, and that takes a while to print, so.
To finalize our part of today's meeting, though, we need to have a vote of this commission to certify this.
Certifying these as the official results for the August 2nd election.
I wanted to make sure we didn't miss that before we adjourn. So, hearing everything that Dory has said to us, going through the process this morning, I would entertain a motion of this commission certifying the official election result.
Go ahead, senior member of the commission.
I would, Mr. Chairman, I would make that motion to certify this election day result.
All right. Oh, excuse me.
Add on some ditto, the compliments to our staff, Dory, and all those folks that worked
even though, especially, or not especially, but even though those volunteers that were helpful with her, so.
And I do just
There's a
want to, I
motion.
just want to point out really quick that Vanessa is integral to these elections. She pretty much administers everything with little oversight. She's done a fantastic job and wouldn't be where we're at today without her. So kudos to her, most importantly.
I do like your response when people say, complain about the elections, that volunteer, we're looking for
Yep.
volunteers.
And they didn't.
Mr. Chairman,
We
I'll
have a motion to certify these as the official election results.
second his vote.
And seconded by Dave. Now, any additional comments and kudos and all the other stuff, but yes. You got a great staff down there, so, and a great group of volunteers, too.
Absolutely.
I saw some of them sitting there in the back, and they've been with you for a while, some of them. So,
Yes. We actually have one poll worker, this is her 40th year.
40th?
40th year, yes. It's pretty incredible, so.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Is that a Guinness Book of Record? Or?
Might be. She's pretty incredible, so.
Yeah, oh, that's great. So with that, we have a motion and a second to certify these official results. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Unless there's anything else for the good of the order.
Chairman, so I do want to just mention that there is a recount that is possible to happen. We were not one of the counties selected for the state treasurer's race recount, so we are not doing anything with that, but there has been a recount filed for the constitutional amendment. As of yet, the payment has not been made for that, so we have not yet been ordered to begin that. We did come in over the weekend and get a couple of boards secured so that we would be able to start that as soon as we're given the order to do so. If we do that, the last I heard was that we have to be done by Wednesday at 5 p.m. We get 5 days after a recount is filed, and that includes weekends and holidays. So we'll have to try to get that done by Wednesday at 5 p.m. And then you would all need to recertify results because of that. So if that does happen, I will be in touch with you, but please know that we may need to have a quick meeting.
Yep. Understood.
All right.
Until that potential time, we are adjourned.